Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a long, fun day. Had a kiddo's birthday party this afternoon. Got drunk, got sober, getting drunk again. On some wonderful Fanatic beers. FanaticBrewing.com/agreement. Check them out. We appreciate them very much for sponsoring the show. They're located at 2727 North Central. Go there to the fan base. That is their version of the tap room. They're now open Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 5 p.m. to 10 or later, depends on what's going on. Thursdays, open mic night comedy. Friday and Saturday, they have $5 Black Bean or Black Angus burgers. That is Fanatic Brewing at 2727 North Central. Go check them out at FanaticBrewing.com/agreement. We are almost in agreement at gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Check us out at our website, almostinagreement.com. Get all our episodes there or on your favorite podcast provider. While you're on your favorite podcast provider, give us a thumbs up, like, share, 5 stars, whatever version of subscribe and stuff they do. That helps us get the word out and find more people to hang out and listen to us chitter chatter, pitter patter. I've been watching Letterkenny this week, so pitter patter. Yeah, we got bits and pieces of it. We got Hulu. We're doing the free trial of Hulu, and they have Letterkenny on there, so I've been watching a lot of Letterkenny. Apparently it's funny. Well, it's really funny. I was watching last night, and it's like episode 4 or something like that. And so, Squirrely Dan, big dude, he's a comedian. He does stand up, and apparently he's fairly popular in Canada or whatever. And so, there's a bit in the show where they're playing catch, talking about stuff, and he says something about he saw a comedian on the Just for Laughs the other night tell a joke about Captain Crunch. And that's his bit. When he goes out and does stand-up, he has this bit about how down in the States, because they're all Canadian, down in the States they have like 7 kinds of Captain Crunch. But like it was really funny because in the show, his character is referencing him, the real person, being the stand-up comedian he saw do a bit on it. And I was like, that's hilarious.
How many people caught that one?
I would hope many. I don't know. I mean, people that are fans of the show are probably watching his stand-up.
Do we have any Canadian dramas that have come to the U.S.? I know like Trailer Park Boys has gotten like a cult following and is big. Seems to only be like Canadian comedies that seem to cross the border.
I don't know. I mean, it seems like all the British drama comes from Britain, not from like BBC. All the BBC shows that are super popular, but those are all the drama shows that are.
Yeah, Downton Abbey.
Yeah, and Sherlock. Speaking of Sherlock, the guy that plays Holmes in the Sherlock with Cumberbatch,
Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yeah, the guy that plays Holmes in that series.
The guy who plays Watson.
Or Watson, yeah, sorry. The guy that plays Watson in the series. We're watching one that's called Startup on Netflix right now. It's pretty fucking crazy.
His name's on the tip of my tongue.
But that dude's a good actor.
Something Martin.
Yes. Daniel?
Or Martin something.
Daniel, I don't know.
Yeah. Great actor, yeah. Played Bilbo.
Yeah, very good actor. He's been fun to watch. So what's new? What's happening in the state? Nothing.
In the state?
State's done.
Pretty much wrapped everything in.
Well, I mean, to catch everybody else up, you and I and the group have been chatting back and forth about trying to get one of our state reps or state senators to come on and do a session recap with us. So I've emailed Massey in Manus's office.
So you had her on once or twice?
Massey?
Yeah.
Twice.
Huh?
Once as a candidate, once as a person. Yeah. Had Manus 3 times.
What?
Once in primary, once in his primary candidate, once as a general candidate, and then that little mini episode I caught with him where my mom interrupted. Did you listen to that show? It's pretty funny.
I can't remember if I caught that one or not.
It was just one of those. It was kind of neat. I feel like I had to pull out the tech side out of nowhere and get it done. But
it's when you were on vacation?
No.
Okay.
No, I was in my mom's driveway, doing it, recording it on my phone. While we were doing it, and like I text my mom as I pulled in the driveway. It's like, hey, I got this phone call. I'll be in a couple minutes. So I'm like 15 minutes in, and my mom comes out, opens the car door. It's like, what are you doing? It's like, I'm on a phone call. I text you. She's like, well, you're in my driveway. I was like, yes, and that's why I text you and said I'm going to stay in the driveway for a minute and do this phone call. Hey, Mom, say hi to Eddie Manus. Oh, hi.
Just hold up the finger, the index finger, not the...
Give my mom the finger? Yeah, you know my mother wouldn't take kindly to that.
Give me a minute. Talk to the hand, Mama.
But yeah, that was funny. But so yeah, we got the state review stuff we need to do.
Like I said, I got it on the website, and it was just kind of confusing. I wasn't 100% sure if I was looking at fiscal, because I know they started at the beginning of the year, so it was talking about the 112th or 111th Congress.
112th state legislature for state Tennessee. I don't know.
I think some of those are in that kind of like limbo, because some of the ones I was able to click on, I think some of those were ones that were sent to summer study.
Yeah, because I don't know what that means either, whether that's something that... Because
there's some that have passed, and they're basically just on the desk.
I'm under the impression that... I thought they did 2 sessions a year. They did a first and second. And it was... First stuff goes into effect July, second stuff goes into effect January.
One they called like an exceptional... No, it wasn't an exceptional session. What do they call it? Extraordinary session?
I mean, they had a bunch of stuff last year.
What is that?
They had a bunch of last year stuff that was emergency sessions because of COVID and whatnot. But I guess I'm just guessing at it. But what it feels like to me is that they have one session, first half of the year, and then they have stuff that needs to get adjusted. I think they have stuff that needs to get adjusted and stuff, and goes to summer or whatever. And they have one mini session in the fall, late summer, fall, where it's really just fixing stuff that they didn't quite complete in the first half. But I don't think they have another full session where they spend weeks and weeks and weeks like they did at the beginning of the year. Because they were in there weekly since the beginning of the year. Yeah, like every day they had stuff going on.
It was like 3 or 4 days out of the week that I was catching it on TV.
Yeah, so I don't know. That's something that I'm curious to keep following up with, just trying to understand the patterns and how the things work. Because it would be nice to know what that means when it goes to summer study, if that really just means it fizzles off and disappears, or if it's something that gets worked on, and then comes back next January, gets done in session of the 112th B or whatever it is.
It kind of depends on the bill and how much support there is on either side. If they're really how much they're going to have to change a bill to, appease enough people to get them to back it or co-sign.
Yeah, for sure. Some of
the bills they said, they've brought up 2 or 3 times. They've never gone anywhere.
Another random black dude's on federal charges related to the Austin East shooting.
Federal and state charges. Yeah,
state misdemeanor for straw buy, which is essentially what he did. He went in with him and picked out the gun.
Apparently, the kid was in there with him too.
Yeah, but it goes against the narrative. The narrative was that it wasn't his gun; it was somebody else's gun, which I guess technically is true since other dude bought the gun and whatever. But it's dumb. I mean, it's the same shit the kids do with the cigarettes and the beer and everything else. Why are we surprised? No. I'm not. I mean, I was. Where do we think he got the gun? Mm-hmm. Or where do we think any of these high school kids, regardless of whether they're Austin East or any other high school, get these guns? Could
be anywhere. Could have been a friend's parents.
Right, but that's what I'm saying, though. It's not like these guns fall out of the sky. No. And I guess this is what leads into this is why we need to not have these guns available for sale conversation.
There's 3 or 4 active soldiers that got busted. I think they were out of Fort Campbell for basically gun running up to Illinois.
I heard about that. Are they Department of Defense weapons? Was that what
No, I think they said they actually had gone to I don't think it was gun shows, but like gun shops and stuff.
Okay, so they're buying guns
at federal firearm licensing vendors.
Yeah,
they call them.
There's speaking of random government sales stuff, Knox County's selling properties that they've seized from failure to pay property tax, starting at $50.
Well, yeah, they do auctions for all sorts of stuff, like bank auctions.
Yeah.
You have to be in the know to get it, or you have to have a special license.
No, you just go to show up. I tried to go to a KPD impound auction couple last year. It was full on COVID stuff, and I remember thinking to myself, maybe I could score a sweet deal on something. I mean, 1, because it's auction, but 2, because maybe less people are going to go out and show up because of the COVID restrictions or whatever. Right. And I pulled up into that over there by the zoo or whatever. Like I went, and there was just tow trucks lining the side of the road.
Yeah. People in the know about those things.
I was like, yeah, nope. I don't think I'm in. I don't know enough to either buy. I'll either buy something stupid for what I think's a good deal, or I'll just not buy anything, and I'll sit around and watch the whole thing. Right. But apparently this upcoming land auction that the county's putting on, there's some complaints about it. I read a story about it. I need to find the story again. But apparently, traditionally, the county uses some other office or something like that, but they're using Powell Auction House to do it, who apparently was a donor to somebody.
Nice.
And so there's some questions there that I've heard about, but I don't really know the story other than there's some questions there.
I know people have questions.
Yeah, but I don't know. That's what I heard.
It's the word on the street.
Yeah. Got into it with some peeps on the Facebook on all sorts of good stuff. What did I get into it about?
Yeah, remind me, I'll ask you about that off air.
What?
Oh, something you mentioned before.
Something I mentioned on air before?
Yeah.
Or? This one. Person had posted about, trying to just have a discussion about whether or not they're still wearing masks out and about. And I was like, I don't know. It was just interesting kind of, this person is basically saying, I'm going to keep my mask with me and I'm going to be respectful or whatever. But my question was, are you vaccinated? And then I go into my whole stance on it. It's like, if you're fully vaccinated, I can completely get behind the idea you keep a mask with you, because if a business says they want masks on, you put your mask on. If some person that you're in close quarters with is asked you to because they'd be more comfortable, sure, because it's a polite thing to do.
Okay.
But I was like, other than that, why would you, if you're fully vaccinated, why would you wear your mask anyway? And then it goes on down here to get a study from the Baltimore Sun, Prince's study, University of Maryland, among other schools, are doing research on whether fully vaccinated people can carry. Go away. I just want to read the story again. I read it earlier. Oh, it's a subscriber-only story. Anyway.
I think it was only one, but there was also some coaches of the Yankees that tested positive.
Really?
After being fully vaccinated.
Right. And so anyway, the question at hand is, you can be fully vaccinated, but you can still technically be a carrier.
Is there a reason you wanted to engage her in this conversation?
It was because, the way she put it out was that, it was like, I'd like to hear thoughts, and not trying to be inflammatory or overly emotional about it. I'm curious what people are thinking, because the CDC's starting to adjust their guidelines for what you should and shouldn't do and how you should and shouldn't do it. And so I was like, I'm interested. I'm curious to talk about it. And so we chatted about it. And so, I go into, my standard. It's like, well, I don't know. It goes into the other part too right now, where Mr. Biden came out and said either vaccine or mask. That's your choice in life as an American, apparently. And we're okay with that, I guess. So that's where my desire to engage came from, I suppose.
Is he requiring it?
Do what?
Is he requiring it?
That's what all the guidelines are running off of, is that premise, is that, like, you find the current guidelines, it's, if you have your vaccine, you can do whatever you want. If you don't, you have to wear a mask everywhere.
Is it a law?
I don't know.
Okay.
Yet, maybe. I don't know. Because it runs down to, it runs down the same thing. It's following the same pattern of the vaccine passport conversation.
Has anybody been forced?
Do what?
Has anybody been forced?
By the state? No.
Okay.
Well, maybe. I don't know. I don't know if they're just, I don't know that answer to that question, if I'm honest.
Okay. The way you're talking just made it sound like it was assumed.
I am assuming that there are people that were given the vaccine against their will. Yes. And realistically, that's kind of what the statement of vaccine or mask is. It's if you don't want to wear the vaccine, or if you don't want to wear the mask and you don't want the vaccine, you've got to do one thing against your will. If that's the option you get as an American. And that's, I don't know. It's not very American to me, but whatever.
Well, times I've been out, I haven't seen any business that has
most
tried
places
to stop anybody.
And it does bother me, because most places that I go into for work still have their sign on the door that says mask required. So
right.
So I put my mask on. I don't know what the big fucking deal is. It's annoying. I don't like it. I'd rather not, but the business asked for it, so I do it. It's not that big a deal. Now, if the business said you have to be vaccinated to come in, I'd happily not go in, because
See, now it's even in a weirder gray area because I know I was watching or looking at a list of they were mentioning the major retailers that were changing their mask guidelines with the new CDC changing their guidelines, and it was basically if you're fully vaccinated, you can not wear a mask, but most of them weren't going to go around and ask people for their card or whatever. I need you to show proof.
Well, I mean, but before you go on from there, that are you required to show them proof? Can they require you to show proof?
I doubt it.
That's the problem. I mean, that's the problem. That's the inherent problem in the situation that we're putting ourselves in right now.
I mean, they have the right to say, if you can't show me proof and you're refusing to put a mask on, we're going to have to ask you to leave.
Sure, but they could ask you to leave because you're standing in front of them, right? But it's just that's one of those inherent issues at play here. Like, what happens if I don't get a vaccine and I have to appear in court?
Courtrooms are still requiring it.
The vaccine,
a mask,
right? I'm just saying, but the court says, well, you can, if you've been vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask. But they can't make me prove that I've been vaccinated. I'm not.
No, I think there's
hypothetical.
I think at this point they're still requiring for any governmental building.
Right, but I'm just saying hypothetically.
Okay. I thought you were talking about real life.
I was jumping into a hypothetical without stating it as such. My bad.
Right, let's go down hypothetical.
I'm just saying hypothetically, if they run that same pattern of vaccine or mask, and I have to go to court because I have to go to court,
right?
And I say I've had a vaccine. Well, I guess that might be contempt because I'd be lying. Anyway, can they require me to show proof of my vaccine to go to court?
They may be able to look it up prior to.
Because I don't know.
I don't know if they would, but I think they could.
Assuming that the health department and everybody giving out vaccines right now is properly reporting and recording everything, and it's being databased well.
It's supposed to be, yeah.
I'm curious about it. That's all I'm saying. Just curious.
And they report it to whatever local health department that you get it at. It's reported to the local health department.
Have you put any thought? Switch subjects because I'm tired of this one.
Okay, let's go to another hypothetical.
Well, we are going to another. We're going to the big hypothetical I put out a couple weeks ago that you wanted to put more thought into, and I was curious if you put more thought into it.
What was
the current middle is as extreme, if not more extreme, than what we consider the extreme left or right?
Yeah. I haven't really been able to do any research on it.
I don't know how. You'd asked about that in the text, and I was like, I don't know how you'd research it. It's really just it really comes down to me. It's like it goes back to the real question, and this is the research question, I guess, that you could do research on, is what are the things you want your government to do? How do you want your government to work? And then contrast what this government does versus your ideal image of a government, and then a full-on left extreme or a full-on right extreme versus your ideal government. Which one is more extreme to your ideal government? Because, I mean, to me, I think it's like, basic, simple stuff. Security on some level, that you can move about in your daily life safely, that you can engage in commerce and whatever with other people safely and efficiently, as efficiently as possible, those kind of things. And I don't see where 7 wars lines up in that conversation. I don't see where.
Are we in 7 currently?
I don't think we're in 1 officially, legally speaking.
Is the war on terror still going on?
Yes.
Technically.
Yes, because the war with Afghanistan is ending, but not the war on terror.
The Korea one was always weird that I didn't know. It's still technically going on, but I don't think it was ever a declared war.
I mean, I don't think we've
declared a war, but there was never actually. There was like a truce, basically. There was never actually a peace deal made. So
this is actually probably researchable.
By some rules of war, South Korea and North Korea are still at war.
Yeah, I don't know that we've ever. I don't know that we've officially declared war on another country since World War II.
I think we declared war on the first Iraq War. Desert Storm?
No, you might be right. Yeah, good point.
And after that, I think when we went into Eastern Europe, like Kosovo and
all the Cold War stuff. Those weren't.
That's post-Cold War. Cold War ended in 89.
89, yeah. But all those, yeah, I get what you're saying. All that debacle.
I thought there was something I found on government function.
Oh, did you put your application in for city comptroller? City's hiring a comptroller, bro.
That wouldn't pull up on my phone.
Really?
Website wouldn't load.
No.
I went on the state website tonight, and I couldn't find it.
No, it's the city, so it'd be on the Knoxville.
Oh, I went on the state website for the state comptroller, and it did have 3 positions that were open, but all of them, I think, all 3 required like a bachelor's in economics and at least 24 credit hours of like accounting based.
Yeah, it was. I mean, they had some specific requirements.
That's not me.
I think I technically could. I think I could technically check the required boxes. Like they wanted a master's in something. You're required within the first 18 months to go get some sort of certificate. I mean, it's really. I mean, honestly, if I were going to take a government job, that's the one I'd want. Not because I'd be good at it or anything, but just because that is my number one question all the time.
Running down leads.
Well, yeah, I can go chase after, city employees stealing golf carts, and I mean, not really. The city budget doesn't have a lot to do, so there's not a lot going on there. It's only $300 million.
Nah, it'd still be a good bit of money chasing.
Oh, sure. For sure. I mean, most of that work would be KPD would be a huge chunk of it. That was what's interesting to me about the budgets. Budget season sucked. I don't know if you caught the fact that it's already pretty much come and gone.
Vaguely.
Do I?
Vaguely.
But I mean, yeah, the school and the school and the sheriff's office, they just drop them. I mean, they have them ready. They have them ready. They drop them and they throw them in the county. The county budget's still underworks. The city budget's still technically underworks. But as it's become apparent to me that the city mayor can just say whatever, and the council can't really do shit. If the council can't, unless I think it's got to be like a 2/3. It's got to be something more than just a simple majority.
I mean, say whatever in what?
Like the mayor,
in what regard?
Like the mayor put her budget out, right? And put it to the council. The council couldn't agree on it, so it goes back to the mayor.
And the mayor's office put the budget together.
Yeah.
Okay, I figured the city council.
No, it's the same. I mean, the county's the same way. Mayor Jacobs puts the budget together, presents it to the commission. But the way
I assume they get those numbers from the different departments that have
Yeah.
requested
Yeah.
their fiscal whatever.
Yeah, and there's and I get it. It's stuff that goes on constantly. Starting next week, they're working on the 22 budget as far as prepping and doing all that stuff. But anyway, Kincannon presents her budget. The city council can talk about it, but if they can't agree, it goes back to the mayor for a decision. So the mayor says, "Yep, this is my budget." So the council would have to do something. I can't remember exactly what the program is that they have to do, but the council, the council can't really shut her budget down. They can try to make adjustments or something like that.
There's not even a 2/3 majority of.
I don't remember exactly. We were talking about it with Miss Harper when I had her on. And I mean, a couple of the other city council persons have mentioned the fact that the county budget or the city is a very mayor-heavy system. It is much more difficult for a city council person to put an agenda item up to then get it passed by the council. Because even if the council passes it, it has to go to the mayor's desk, and the mayor doesn't necessarily have to do anything. Like it could be a 9-0 vote in city council, and the mayor doesn't have to approve it. From what I gather, I don't fully understand it, but that's the premise as I understand. Like that's the feel I'm getting, I guess, is that the mayor does what the mayor wants to do. The city council is a very low second on the power hierarchy of city government.
Is there a vice mayor?
Yeah, there's like 6.
Huh.
Non-elected. Like there's vice mayors and then there's deputy mayors. And I can't remember which one's which, but like...
I wonder if they have, what do they call it? Whatever survivor, where so many of them can't be in the same room
the
at the same
designated
time.
survivor, yeah.
Designated survivor, yeah, just in case something
I'm sure
happens.
they do, yeah.
They can't have the second in line, like, at the same gala.
That was a Massey. Massey was working on a constitutional amendment, a state constitution amendment along those lines for the governor. there is a Randy McNally from Oak Ridge is the vice governor.
Yeah.
So if Governor Lee died or got assassinated or something like that, McNally takes over. But if there is if Governor Lee got COVID and really got hit hard and went to the hospital and had to stay in the hospital and had a period of time where he was out of commission but not dead.
Right.
There is no structure.
Not able to act in that position.
Right. So there is no structure in the state constitution for what to do in that case. Everybody assumes it would go like it's an assumption, and like apparently
there's no specific rule
and
negated, and someone can go like, well, no, I was
right. And apparently McNally refused to vote on it because it affected him, because it's basically he's voting on giving himself an extra duty in case of, and so he felt inappropriate to vote on it, so he didn't vote on it. Which I mean, I think it's the right play, politically speaking. But yeah, interesting little tidbits, doodads.
To learn interesting little tidbit. I started digging in. I said I was going to start looking in the Commerce Department and the Patent and Trademark and Patent Office. Apparently, it is funded. It's fee funded, basically.
Okay, that's cool.
The actual term that they called it. I thought that was kind of interesting. I was like, oh, like they don't ask for appropriations.
Well, because I mean that makes sense. I mean, and I feel like that's a valid tax on a business or an individual.
Call it.
But I mean, because the other part about those offices is they don't do anything; they just file the paperwork. Like they don't research and say, "Oh, well, somebody already invented the telephone, Mr. Bell." They just sign the paperwork, give you a patent number. And then somebody else has to come along and say, no, I invented it first, and then they have to go pull the files. And then it goes to a judge and stuff.
Yeah, so it was a basic thing. They provide examination of patent and trademark applications, and they guide domestic and international intellectual property policy. They are fee funded, yeah. I guess I think it was for fiscal year 2021, they asked for $0 in appropriations.
Good for them. Given what little they do.
Yeah, they don't do anything.
I didn't say they didn't do anything. I said what little they do. You were looking at your phone.
You know how many fucking patents
people
try to put out every year?
Right, but they don't. Well, my point is, it is my understanding, and maybe you did when you did some research on it, but it is my understanding that they don't go. That was my joke about Alexander Graham Bell just now. Bell patents the telephone. They don't go and check to make sure nobody else patented the telephone before. They just
cross-reference it with a similar patent.
No, they just file the patent, and then the guy that invented the phone before Bell has to sue Bell and then the courts deal with it. All the patent office, and especially trademark and copyright specifically, they don't do anything except if you as a musician, or I mean us in the podcast. Our auto does it through the service and all the kind of stuff that we pay for and all that jazz. But essentially what happens is it just gets filed. It just gets put in a file somewhere. And if somebody else uses this podcast without our permission,
it would be on us to
catch them using it. And then we contact our lawyer, and our lawyer goes through the whole process and says, "Hey, they're using our copyright without permission." And then it goes to a judge, and then the patent office goes and pulls, or the copyright office in this case would just go and pull the files, and it's like basically who's first. Like, oh, this one was first, and then the judge awards whatever. I'm not saying they don't do anything, but they don't. It's not like it's a huge research thing where they're saying, well, I mean, I use the telephone as example, so Bell patents the telephone. He files the paperwork. They give him the patent number. They put it in the drawer.
I'm assuming there's some kind of process to make sure it's not a duplicate patent before they approve the patent. And actually, I guess they give you an official patent number once that patent's approved.
I don't know. I don't think that's the case. I think they just give them out, and they let you figure it out if there's a question. You and the courts figure it out if there's a question of whatever. Because I think it's one of those things too, where we have stuff that's very similar but also different.
Because then one would legally have approved patent numbers for the same thing,
right? But the patent number will be later than the patent number that's the appropriate owner,
right?
And so then the argument comes, because I've heard of cases where the argument comes, it's like, well, two different people in two different places invented the same thing in a short period of time from each other without each other's knowledge. So it wasn't actually a theft.
Right. But one happened to file it sooner.
Right. But it's still that the one that filed it first, even though the second one had no knowledge, doesn't. But there's cases where that becomes an issue as well.
I think it listed there's 6 or 7 offices throughout the U.S.
Yeah. So it's my understanding of the patent office. Please correct me, people. So Israel's bombing shit and getting bombed and shit. That's been kind of, it popped up on my little screen here. I forgot about it.
Yeah, it's been going on all week. It's pretty crazy.
I don't understand it. We talked about it last week. I mean, that Iron Dome thing's pretty badass, just as a functional.
About an Iron Dome.
Iron Dome's their missile defense system.
Ah.
It's kind of like our Star Wars that never worked, but
apparently there's a lot of news organizations that are pissed off. I guess yesterday or last night, it was offices of the Associated Press and Al Jazeera that were in like the top of one building that got bombed.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard about that.
I think it was Israel that did that. I still don't understand what Hamas's role is. I guess, Hamas has been the main respondent to Israel.
Hamas is the terrorist organization or something. We talked about it a couple weeks ago, or maybe last week. I don't know. I don't understand. Like, I understand a tiny bit of the religious issues at play and the Holy Land issues and stuff like that. I kind of get that part a little bit. But as far as the whole mess of foreign relations between whether Palestine's an official country or not, and whether Israel's supposed to be an official country or not, and why we have this long-standing tie with one versus the other.
Israel is a country,
but Palestine might not be a country. Some people don't count it.
Sure
That's what I'm saying. Like,
if they have different passports. From what little I've seen, it sounds like Israel's kind of gone against, previous peace agreements of what the different territories were as far as Gaza and the West Bank. They said, Israel, you're not creating any more land, but they basically just kind of started taking over more and more land that I guess had been agreed that the Palestinians would have for their area.
Right, but it was agreed through what? Some UN resolution or whatever?
I think the last was, it was Clinton that sat down with Yasser Arafat and somebody else.
One of those good double handshake pictures. One of those where they have
some of those. Yeah, they did it in like the Rose Garden in front of the White House. Yeah,
that was a clue on Jeopardy the other day, and I couldn't remember. I was like, I know, I can see the picture, but I think it was Carter. It was the one I saw, or the one they referenced. I don't remember. Not important.
Last time was in the 90s.
Moral of the story is, I don't fucking understand that whole shit show on what our involvement and why we are involved with it as much as we are.
Part of it is we involved ourselves. I think a lot of it happened pretty much post World War II.
Right.
It was when Israel was established.
But again, it's like
we were one of the Allied powers.
Right. It's one of many of those things that I don't understand why we are still and constantly always injecting ourselves into these other issues around the world.
So when they fought in the 60s, I don't think we involved ourselves in it. We may have involved ourselves as far as like the peace talks, but I don't think we sent soldiers to either side.
Yeah, apparently,
I'm sure we probably sent weapons to either side.
Yeah, and apparently we give a bunch of money to Israel.
Yep.
We don't give them weapons or
soldiers there.
Yeah, but we give a ton of.
It was like, something great that Trump did. He promised he was going to move the embassy, and he did.
Hey, you know what? A politician that delivers on a promise, whether it's a good promise or not, it's still delivered on a promise.
I just think it was a poor move.
Because
again, I mean, like you were saying, like, why aren't we involved?
Right.
And we're like, hey, we're going to move our embassy.
We're going to stir the shit worse.
Exactly.
Great. Which I don't think I don't know. Like I said, my dad's version of it is if we aren't there, it's worse. And Israel would be doing worse things. It's my dad's version of it. Which, again, don't understand it.
Or preventing Israel. Oh, yeah. Never mind.
Yeah. By being allies with Israel, we are preventing Israel from wiping whatever's left of Palestine out and then going on to Iran, I think is what my dad's version was. Like, Israel would erase Iran and Iran and Palestine if they had the opportunity. But since they're friends with us, they can't. Yeah. Which doesn't make sense because we don't like Iran, apparently. Iran doesn't like us. We like to hang out in our big warships real close and then get mad when they come near us when we're in the international waters that's right on the edge of their water. But whatever. Right. They're the assholes. They're coming out and bothering us while we're in their waters. Whatever.
With our warship.
Right.
Like, what are you doing here?
Boom.
We're just cruising.
Fuck off.
Just cruising. Just doing exercises.
Right. Right here so you could see it.
Show you what could happen. It's like constantly holding your fist up to a bully like, no, I could pop you. I could hit you.
I think it's the other way. I think it's just being the bully and standing there and daring the little dorky kid to start something. You ain't gonna do nothing. You can't do nothing. Do something. Dare you. Do something. See what happens. Do something.
A lot of it just goes back, centuries.
I mean, I get it. I can understand their conflict. I don't understand our role in it.
I think it's one of the many things I've found that America is just kind of like past the tipping point on, as we've injected ourselves in so many things throughout the world and trying to be world peacekeepers. To me, it isn't a bad thing to attempt to try to keep peace in the world, but when you at the same time decide to be the strong arm in parts of the world as well, you're going to inevitably make some people happy and upset others.
Fuck off. Just give me the simple answer. I Googled while you were talking to Google.
Siri.
How much money?
Oh, you're looking for money? Oh, man, good luck in that.
US 40.
I mean, that's where it gets hard as far as like money, because it's not a flat payment. Because they, if we sell them arms or whatever, sell them wheat or anything, they kind of have that trade deficit that kind of gets worked into, any money that's donated or
right.
However that go to whatever cause.
All right, this is concernusa.org. I never heard of them. They're .org, so take it for what it's worth. But it says, as of January of this year, top 10 countries are Afghanistan, Israel, Jordan, Egypt, Iraq, Ethiopia, Yemen, Colombia, Nigeria, Lebanon. Yemen's, I'll go into that in a second. Afghanistan, $4.89 billion.
Yeah, it doesn't get to million until you get to Iraq.
Israel, $3.3 billion. And this is the numbers from 2019. So
is this
just for
total over the years, or this is per year?
So $3.3 billion. So $10 a year. You, every American citizen out there listening, is paying $10 a year to Israel. And holy shit!
In 2019, just that year. Okay.
Yeah, and this is only 35% of the total budget that is spent in foreign countries.
Of that budget, yeah, foreign aid budget.
So the top 10 countries total 35% of the budget in foreign aid. But you Americans, every one of you out there, donates $10 a year to Israel. Give or take, not exact math. You donate $5 a year to Egypt, a little over $5 to Jordan, about $15 to Afghanistan, just in financials, because I would assume this is not including the cost of our military being there separately. And I would be curious to know, maybe this accounts for...
I think we have troops in Israel, Jordan, Egypt.
But, I mean, Afghanistan?
Ethiopia. We've got them in Afghanistan, yes.
Would a private security force... You think a private security force would be on this list, or you think that would be on the military side?
That I'm not sure who picks up the bill on that, who that gets sent to.
So
if they, I guess if we're giving Afghanistan money, we're not then somehow having their government pay us for having government contractors there.
Yeah. The Yemen one kind of surprised me.
Maybe they're paying us in opium.
Because I know we support Saudi Arabia with missiles and Air Force stuff for them fighting some terror group in Yemen, which is like half of the population of Yemen, the Yemenis.
There was a good Jimmy Carter quote I found that was on that.
On Yemen and the Saudis?
No, just in government aid and stuff.
How awesomely useful it is.
No, it was kind of mocking it. Yeah, we can't be the world's leading champion of peace and the world's leading supplier of the weapons of war.
Nice. All right, so it goes a little further down in this article. It says, in countries like Afghanistan, nearly 50% of its near $5 billion aid is in military assistance. On the other end of the spectrum, Ethiopia received almost exclusive humanitarian assistance. Only 0.25% of its funding was for military. But that's military assistance, so that's funding the military of that country, I assume, not...
Possibly, or it could be just the cost we incur to send training and supplies there.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. That's a thing.
Weird, I mean, that's weird about some of these numbers. They don't tell you all like, the kind of details that kind of go into it.
Nonetheless, though, yeah. I mean, on the grand scheme of
looking at budgets, it's hard.
Well, $47 billion in foreign aid in 2018, 2019, whatever. Again, that's $100 a person, give or take, a little more than $100 a person in America that we were spending over there. And over there being a whole myriad of over there's. And then we ask ourselves the question, like, why? What are we doing over there?
Well, I know that was brought up with some of the Central American countries. I think, Trump was trying to cut some of the funding to it. But part of that aid was to try to help stabilize those countries to then decrease.
Right, have less migrants.
Right, that are trying to come into the country because they're
corruption. Right, and I'll be and to be fair and clear on it, I'm not opposed to the premise of the haves helping out the have-nots. I mean, to tout ourselves as good stewards of humanity and the amount of money and stuff like that we can create and generate and stuff like that through our systems and stuff like that. I'm not opposed to the idea of helping out. But
there's some that feel that it should just be, more charitable charitable agencies that are doing that domestically and internationally.
Right. And let people choose to give away 120, 150, whatever the math says, dollars a year to help foreign countries and people in needs.
Start a GoFundMe page.
Yeah, well, but the problem is it's the take the money part that's the issue for me. It's they are taking my money.
Well, that's been the issue with some of the African countries as far as like sending food over. Those countries that aren't as stable. You've got, whoever's in power that ends up showing up at the the bag of the rice bag drop and just takes all the food for themselves and gives it out to the rebel armies. We
were watching The Young Pope. It's a Showtime series. It's got the beautiful I'm just blanked out on his name. Jude Law as a pope. As the Pope. It's a weird show. Like it's
like the Pope, but he's not really the Pope.
No, he's totally the Pope, but like it's a very weird show.
Anthony Hopkins in it too? I thought there was an older guy.
No,
I haven't watched that.
There is an older guy in it. Anthony Hopkins was in Westworld. I think it was Anthony Hopkins. Anyway, which is another one we were watching recently. But what were we talking about before that? Oh, the foreign aid stuff there. So he goes to Africa and there's some like mission there that's like helping provide water and stuff. But like apparently the nun that runs it like is just straight up gangster about it. Like favors and donations and all sorts of like backroom deals. She's supposed to it's supposed to be there as part of the Catholic Church, helping things out and doing all this different stuff, and then she's fully corrupted and doing all these things to steal and whatever. It just reminded me of that bit in that show because we were talking about like a warlord will go and he'll collect the foreign aid and then use it as ransom against the people that it's supposed to be.
There were some accusations against Mother Teresa. Apparently, she was taking money from a Haitian dictator, a former Haitian dictator.
Oh, yeah?
And was kind of opening up all these...
But, she's legitimately a saint. Fuck off, whoever's throwing accusations out. Like, she is legitimately a saint. That's funny. I mean, it's not funny, but it's funny.
Oh, they interviewed, I saw an interview with one or two of, like, nuns that used to work for her. She started all these, poor, I guess they were convents, basically. That's what she was doing with her money. It was supposed to be confidence for the poor, but she wasn't really helping them as much, was what they were reportedly saying.
Huh. That's one of those, I don't know, like, what's the metric to say what that...
Right. I think they have to...
How much good do you have to do to be good?
I think they have to perform 2 miracles.
Oh, should it be sainted?
Yeah, to be sainted.
Yeah. I didn't mean that metric.
I think you have to... Oh, okay.
I meant the metric of, like, how much good is enough good?
Right.
Was she doing some good? But not enough to equal the fame. Right, that's what I'm saying. Not enough.
It's all perspective and how you can hype it up.
Right, and not enough, not equatable to what she was getting credit for. Maybe. I don't know. Can't have any good people in the world. They're never good enough.
Well, I mean, people are going to remember you more for some of the bad things you did versus all the good things you did. Sometimes they can balance each other out, but
that's why I think we can get
not always in everybody's mind.
That's why I think the show will work. People can remember all the bad things we do, and
that's right,
and just yell at us for being idiots.
Remember all the stupid shit they say,
dumbasses. I'm trying to think what else I was thinking. I screwed up. We had a fun scheduling game this week and failed miserably on it with Mr. Roth, I believe, from the Metropolitan Planning Commission. I'm trying to get him. It's like, what do you do exactly? I'm really confused. Because it's one of those weird, like, it's a job. It's not an elected position. Or it's an appointed. They're appointees. I did learn that part. There's 15 Metropolitan Planning Commissioners. 8 are appointed, 1 for each district in the county. And then 7 are appointed in the city, and I don't know how that works. That's not right either. There's 9 districts in the county. I don't know how they picked 8 and 7, but there's 8 county and 7 city appointees to the Metropolitan Planning Commission.
If one would have a different position of it, if they have so many people, if they've got 7 districts, and you said there's 9 in the county, but that one extra person is like the secretary / paper filer / auditor / whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. There's because there's 6 city districts, so there's 7 appointees. There's 9 county districts and 8 appointees.
I don't know if it would be a good thing to have someone that's not tied to a specific district and can kind of be that non-partisan, non-district associated. I
mean, I don't know that an appointee from a commissioner has to be in that commissioner's district anyway. They just have to be in the county or in the city, in the municipality at play. So I'm curious. Like, I talked to him a little bit on the phone because we had to reschedule, and then I screwed up and went to work and forgot we rescheduled for an early morning one. It's like shit, and so trying to do him Monday. I'm trying to get him back. We're gonna do it Monday, hopefully. But again, I didn't know they were appointed positions. I don't know what the parameters for having that job are. I'm curious whether when the county does zoning or the city or county does their zoning conversations, whether the commission comes in and helps them do the zoning plans, or the commission just reacts to the zoning plans they're given. Like if the county says these plots out here are residential, and there's the different sub-residential plottings, and the planning commission says okay, and then when things come before the board and they want adjustments, so well, this is what it was planned for, but this is within the whatever. Like I don't like.
Yeah, we can turn that into commercial, or no, that needs to stay agricultural.
Yeah, I don't know exactly. Like it's a very confusing portion of what our elected governing bodies do to me, because I feel like it's one of the most prevalently impactful items that come across in commission meetings. I mean, they have a whole section of the commission meeting. Every commission meeting has a zoning section. Like other agenda items come and go, a lot of budget stuff, receiving grants, and specifically honoring what's his name, Mr. Bivens from WBR, who retired. It's kind of cool. But like those kind of little things, and there's that whole section, and then there's an entire section of zoning and plan changes and all that kind of crap. So like what that means and how that works and stuff like that. And I'll get his thoughts on what this whole North Shore Corridor Association fight's about.
Is that the one that was going in at the end of like Tools Bend? It was supposed to be some new big neighborhood that had a bunch of pushback.
Yeah.
It's I thought there were a couple sections around North Shore that was getting talked about.
Yeah. Commission approved it. Excuse me. Commission approved it, and then this, as far as I'm followed it, this North Shore Corridor Association, or whatever, sued the developer, and so the lawsuit itself delayed development.
I swore there was already something at the end of that, or maybe I'm thinking of a different road.
I mean, I'm sure there's something down there, but it's going to be like it's going to be like this whole, like, I can't remember how many, like 600, 700 unit. Part of it's going to be like condos and duplexes and quadplexes, like really squeezed in tight housing, and then some of it will be like half acre, larger.
I think I'm thinking at the end of that road that's right across North Shore from that Weigel's there near Ebenezer. There's that one light there by like the Dunkin' Donuts.
Oh,
that goes back
Keller Bend.
Keller Bend, yeah. I think at the very, very end of Keller Bend, there's a newer subdivision.
That's
been there for 15, 20 years.
But that's weird though. Is that in Knox County still? Because like parts of that, like,
yeah, it's on this side of the river.
You go far enough down there, it gets weird.
Yeah, it's got to be part of Knox County.
Yeah, that's true. It is on this side.
Blount County wouldn't take over the other side of the river.
Yeah. Oh, excuse me.
And when I was on the state comptroller website, the thing I'd mentioned to you.
What's a comptroller? Please tell me more.
Well, I'm still learning. But one of their subdivisions was like the small business or whatever. And they actually had some little cartoon video that I had to put on the closed captioning because there's not speakers on the computer. But it was kind of interesting. I guess they help. I guess a small business could reach out to them and they kind of help you get in touch with whatever departments if you're having issues with any kind of, I guess state regulations or.
Inside the comptroller's office?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. They said, they kind of help that small business owner, kind of cut the red tape if they were trying to start a new business and were kind of stumbling, trying to figure out what all they need to do to make sure they're in line with the state, I guess, as far as taxes and any other kind of things they have to file or, be on record with having.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. Yeah. I mean, it is well worth an accountant to handle it for you.
I was like, oh, that's cool. Well, now I think this person does it for free.
Yeah. I mean, I don't. I mean, I
you pay the taxes go to them. They got to do something.
Yeah, that's true always. But yeah, that one's gonna be fun. I'm interested in that one as far as just trying to understand what that job is. Because for me too, it's that is a metro item. It is a body inside the city and county that has been already shifted to a metro. It's a combined government entity.
What's that?
The Metropolitan Planning Commission.
Yeah.
They work for the city and the county.
That's shut out comptrollers.
No, I don't know. I mean, no. I guess we have a city comptroller. They're hiring right now. If you want to do it.
See, I thought there was just a state comptroller.
I'm sure the state comptroller looks into city and county comptrollers. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, that'd be one of the interesting things because
they're expanding.
I mean, I think it'd just be. I would assume the state comptroller looks into the state budgets and state bodies. The county comptrollers look into the county budgets and the county bodies. I mean, if it's a state budget item that happens in county, the state comptroller probably looks at it. Maybe the county one does too, but.
Because I got curious, and on the comptroller website, you can look at investigations. And that's the kind of weird thing. Some of them have gone on, I guess, for like 2 or 3 years, or I guess they're finally getting around to, I guess, ruling on or getting a penalty out for whatever violation's been done as far as misappropriation of funds.
Right, because I mean, I think like the multi-use stadium complex, the state has set aside money for it. The state comptroller has the authority to look into how that funding is being used when it gets to go in. As does the city and the county, because we all have funding input on it. And I'd be curious to know if that's one of those things that they break down, if there's a requirement to break that down, like $13.5 million from the state or whatever. Like they have to go down the sheet and say...
There's got to be some kind of money trail.
I agree with that, but I'm just saying whether whether the Sports Authority has to go, this $2 million went to this company and it came from the state part of the money, this $1 million went to this company and it came from county money, or if it's just all that money goes into the Sports Authority and they just write the checks. You get what I'm saying?
Okay, yeah.
And so which I think would be better. I would hope it's that way because then it has more eyes. Because
as far as like from the Sports Authority side, I don't know if they would have to, but from the city and county side, they would have to have filed paperwork saying, $2 million came out of this department's budget or this section of the budget.
But it just goes to the Sports Authority.
Right.
What I'm saying is that when the Sports Authority spends, they have to say whose money they're spending, or if it's just Sports Authority money. Because they're going to get money from the state. They're going to get two different monies from the state. They're going to get the bulk sum from the state and then the tax funds.
I mean, in the grand scheme, would it matter, if the city gave them $2 million, the county gave them $2 million, Sports Authority has $4 million, they spend $3 million. I don't know if they would actually have to break it down. They're like, well, we spent $500,000 of the city's budget and we're spending.
Right, but I think the idea would be that if they allocate where the money came from, then that body has the right to look into this thing. So if they say we spent $5 million on planters around the stadium, and the county's like, what? You spent how much on planters? That's way too much. Well, we spent city money on that, so the city's going to have to want to look into it, not the county. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because the county can't look into city money.
I mean, I guess I would almost assume that would have to be like pre-agreed upon, and like, hey, we're giving you $4 million, but it cannot be put towards this, and this. We're not paying you we're not giving this money for valet parking.
Apparently, that's one of the things that is being worked on, is like the official full supply list, like the toilets and
what all's needed.
Right. But like what type of toilets that they want in the stadium, what type of countertops they want on concessions, like all that stuff. So because one of the concerns is, and apparently it's happened in other municipalities in the past, where they'll be like, yeah, we're going to build a stadium, do whatever. And they're like, okay, give us this money.
Granite countertops. And it's like,
right. And then they start
granite laminate.
Right. And they start, well, no, they do it the other way, where they say they don't specify. And so they just spend more. So like, is it a way, so, some corrupt guy in the system is hiring his buddy's firm to do the actual construction, and his buddy makes more money when he does a more expensive version of a job. Right. So he had, we do a kitchen in a house. We could do a kitchen with, Formica and whatever, and cheap prefab, whatever. Or we can have the custom guy come in and custom build cabinets and granite countertops and stuff like that. The company that does it makes more money off the more expensive version of it. And so the corrupt guy is having him do the more expensive version of it so his buddy can make more money. Right. And then it goes over the budget because they didn't budget for it that way in the plan. And so that's one of the things apparently they're being really specific about on this project, is that...
I assume they've already stipulated that, like, hey, you can't come back to us and ask for more money just because shit happens.
Well, that's one of the things that is in conversation, because they've got to figure out how to do that. Especially right now in the materials cost conversation and the labor cost conversation at this point.
I say boo fucking who. Randy Boyd, cash up.
I'm just saying, I'm not disagreeing with...
City's giving you so much.
I don't disagree with you, but at the end of the day, we own the stadium, not him. It's our building.
I don't know.
I'm just saying,
I still can't get behind the stadium.
The brass tacks of it is it is our building. We as a community own that building,
right? And
he rents it from us, and we're building it to his specs, but we own the building. So we are building the building. And so if, the $65 million budget was on 2x4s that cost, $3 for an 8-foot 2x4 stud, but now they're $7 because of the way the market is, can we reasonably make Boyd Sports pay that? I would be down with it personally, obviously.
Is Nayland owned by the city? Or
no, UT owns all that shit. That's why it's so damn nice.
What about Thompson Bowling?
The city, I believe, pitched in on that. That was part of it. That was a joint effort. I can't remember who mentioned that to me. Somebody on the show mentioned that to me. I didn't realize that was the case. So
we were learning in high school that Westtown Mall, I guess whoever owns the mall or whatever, they don't actually own the land that it's on. That still to this day they pay rent for that plot of land.
Simon Malls.
Simon owns it now. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
I kept trying to call it Simon East Sound, and West. They was like, no, that's Westtown Mall. Yeah. That's Easttown Mall. Like, it's what we've always called it. We're not changing the name. You can put Simon on the door and give a shit. We're still going to call it West Town Mall.
I mean, that's one of those things that I do like that is kind of bothersome to me is how much. How much land should a municipality own? It goes back to our stupid DC statehood thing. What happened with that? Is DC a state yet? Sorry, subject change.
It's not a state yet, no.
Okay. Anyway, coming back. I apologize.
But I wonder if, just think of that, I wonder if they could do that with that property. If someone can own the property and then have a stadium or something put onto it.
Well, Boyd owns the property, but he's giving it to
the city to build.
He's giving it to the Sports Authority to build his stadium on. So we do get away with not having to buy the piece of land to put the stadium on. That's going to be a gift.
Maybe that's what we should have done. The city should have just bought that property and then rented it out to Boyd.
I mean,
or leased it to Boyd.
We're getting it that way anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know either. The more I look into it, the more it's like I
can't get behind it.
I
don't get it. Why the fuck do we need this?
Okay, but what is your objection? Like your actual objection?
I don't see it working out well.
Okay. How so? Like what is that? What is a metric for not working out well? Like the team fails and goes away?
Well, not the team fails as far as like the stadium itself fails. I mean, how many people show up to UT baseball games? I mean, I don't think they sell out.
They sold out today for sure.
What's that?
The Arkansas's number one team in the nation. Peyton Manning came and threw out the first pitch or something like that.
I did see that.
It was a big deal. It was a big deal game, and we won.
Softball's in a national tournament right now.
Good. Our ladies team is pretty good. Yeah. Husband and wife coaching duo.
Yeah. Nice people.
Yeah, good thing. But okay. Anyway, back to the main thing. What is the actual issue? So how do
I don't know Knoxville that well. I mean, I've lived here for years, but I just don't see a large desire for a baseball team being downtown. I know the Smokies used to be here, but obviously there was a reason they moved out of town
because they didn't want. The prior owner of the Smokies didn't want to be at East Knoxville anymore. The story that I understand it is that they wanted to stay in Knoxville, but they did not want to be over there. They wanted to move out west, northwest Knoxville, and the county was like, "No, we'll help you out with we'll renovate the stadium you've got. We'll help, but you're staying downtown East Knoxville." And the owner's just like, "Nah." Sevier County came up with the thing, we're going over there. And then Boyd Sports bought the team a few years later. So Boyd Sports inherited the current situation. But anyway.
I mean, like I was saying, we tried a minor league soccer team, and that was, I guess, one of the pulls. One thing that they're talking about trying to bring in as well, which kind of leads me to think even more that they realize that baseball may or may not fly in town. So they're trying to add more and more into it, which I think it's great that they want to make it into a multi-use stadium. Right. Maybe it'll bring more musical acts here. I mean, we're a decent-sized city, but still Asheville gets more musical acts than we do.
For sure. They have better indoor venues than we do. But I don't even know that does Asheville have an outdoor venue? A large?
Orange Peel, but I mean, it's not really outdoor. It's indoor, but I mean, it's pretty wide. Have you been to it?
Yeah, I've been to a couple shows there.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's indoor, but it's almost like you're outdoor because it's an old like airplane hangar, I guess, or I don't know if it was an old airplane hangar or if it's just designed like that.
They got one of those big ass fans.
But we saw a show at the, I guess it was like there's what would be the Civic Auditorium,
which that place was awful, functionally. It was a weird building.
It's kind of long, but it's set up the same. Because I remember going in there, I was like, I've been in the same building. Because it's set up like our Civic Auditorium and Civic Coliseum.
Oh, where they're attached to each other. It's all kind of
in the same thing, and it's just a few doors away is this giant.
Well, what was weird about that, what was weird about their auditorium is that it was.
I thought the seats were comfy.
It was built as a flat room originally, like it was like a concert hall where you should have seating on the floor and then the stage on one end of the room, and they retrofitted a slope floor. Stadium seating. Yeah, but that was retrofitted because if you looked at the walls, there's all these archways that would go out into the hallway, whatever entrance, exits, concessions area or whatever. There's all these archways that went down both of the walls, but they were cut in half by the way the floor went up, and I thought that was interesting. But yeah, I agree. We don't.
That was my first time when I read. They're like, oh, they're talking about, whoa, we might put a soccer team in there too. We're trying to get that together. I'm like, okay, well, we've kind of had a soccer team here, and that never went anywhere because they didn't have enough people coming.
Okay,
so I'm assuming there was a reason they stopped playing in town, or the.
But
team
what is your? But like, what is your personal complaint? Like, what is your personal issue? Like, how does it affect you negatively?
It's not affect me negatively per se directly.
How would it affect you indirectly negatively?
I mean, I do have the thought, that money could be spent better elsewhere.
No.
Because they had started out with this is going to be city funded or whatever, and then all of a sudden, watching the state general assembly, and I'm like, here's Mayor Jacobs. I'm like, oh, there's this other guy that you've been talking to. And there's another guy that he's been talking to. I'm like, what? There's Memetov.
Memetov.
What the fuck are they doing on the...
Chris Caldwell, Stephanie Welch.
Yeah.
Memetov, Jacobs,
What the fuck are they doing? I was like, I think I said it in the group chat. I was like, what the fuck are they doing? They're asking the state for money. I was I thought we were keeping all this local.
No, that was always.
Like, why do we need to ask the state for money now?
It was always the plan.
Oh, so I didn't know that was part of the original plan. I thought the original plan was all just between the Sports Authority and the city of Knoxville.
Right, but the original plan was the sales tax game. Was the original plan, but that is a state issue. The states does. We wanted to keep the 7% of sales tax generated from there to pay off that loan. Because again, that's what
the state is putting up money, or they're just decreasing what we would give back to the state in sales taxes.
What the original plan was that sales tax revenue from that district would be diverted instead of going to the state
larger
into
special tax district.
Right. Okay. It would be diverted instead of going to the state general fund. It would be diverted to pay off the bonds taken to build the stadium. The state's response was, how about we just give you $13.5 million and we leave this special tax thing away? We just throw the special tax thing out the window. To which Mametov and everybody else believes that that's a little bit ahead of the curve. So I'll agree with you there. What else could the state be doing with $13.5 million? What is the state's total budget? Do you know?
No idea. I'm assuming we're going to be surprised by it because it still blows my mind. I mean, even you talked about just the school budget. For just our county school budget is $500,000. Half a billion. Sorry, yeah, $500 million.
$542 million. Today, I don't know when this was posted. Fiscal year 21-22, Governor Lee's fiscal budget is $42.6 billion.
April 29th, 2021.
So that's the budget that the governor is playing moving forward. And in that $42.6 billion, $13.5 million are going to help build a baseball stadium here in Knoxville. I'm certain you're right that $13.5 million could be used on other things inside the state that could have value. But in a $42.6 billion budget, I would hope that it's not that impactful to the grand scheme of things. It could be.
In that perspective, yes, but that's still... How much are we looking at putting it into this?
Total is supposed to be around 65.
About $65 million.
But the thing that's the thing though is the rest of it's the part that I have the least issue with. Like I'll agree with you on this 13.5. That's it. There's a question there. What else could we be doing with that 13.5? But almost all of the rest of it is going to be funded by the people that use it. It's not going to be funded by me and you. You're going to pay a little bit as a city resident from your city property tax. Or some of that's the one that I haven't seen yet is how the city's planning on paying their portion. But for me and the county, I'm not paying shit unless I go down there and use it. Because the county's portion is going to come out of hotel motel tax that has to be used on touristable whatevers. So, I mean, that anything that the hotel motel tax is going to be spent on is not going to be something that it
goes against your whole, downtown Knoxville, you didn't want to put in any more parking garages.
I don't.
They're going to have to put in some major parking infrastructure if they expect to have big numbers down there that aren't already going down.
I mean, that is a different animal than what is this current problem, and maybe that expedites some of my solutions to the parking garage debacle. That is the worst thing I could see is put another parking garage out there.
I mean, like I said, I don't really give a shit about baseball anymore. I played it as a young child.
I agree.
That's it.
I don't care either. Like John Boy, there's JOM. He does YouTube videos.
Talking about like John Boy and Billy.
John Boy does these YouTube videos that I've started really liking, and he just kind of does an everyman's commentating on a situation, and it's really funny because apparently the YouTube algorithm, like he's got like millions of subscribers or whatever, so he's a well-funded YouTuber, but the algorithm, you have to be at least 3 minutes, and so sometimes he'll break down, like he'll just do a breakdown of like one at bat. Just like this one at bat from this one guy, whatever the situation is. And sometimes they're only like 1.5 minute long videos. And so sometimes he'll just repeat the video. He'll just do the video twice and make it one video to hit the 3 minute mark. But sometimes if he's around 2 minutes, he'll just sit there and look straight in the camera and be like, the video's over. You don't need to keep watching. I just got to keep talking for another 45 seconds so that we hit 3 minutes. And then he'll just keep just sitting there just rambling on. Why are you still watching me? And just the way he does it's really funny. Like, he just does a really funny little, like, whatever. Like, he was doing some, like, Korean baseball breakdown. There was a fight in a Korean baseball game, benches clear kind of thing. And he was doing a whole thing. Like, it's just really funny because, like, it's like bad lip reading is part of what he does. Like, guys talking to each other on the field. And he's like, yeah, get some. Like, he always just trying to do the bad lip readings. But he's like a really huge baseball fan, too. And so, like, he's at the level of baseball fan where he knows the umpire teams. And, like, this umpire and this umpire team, like, they throw people out of games, like, all the time. Like, they make bad calls, and then they throw people out of games. And he's like, these the worst umpires in baseball. So I love watching them because they always do something stupid. And then one of the managers of one of the teams gets upset, and then the manager gets tossed. Or a baseball player, or, like, one of the players gets tossed. Like, there was one video where a dude was at bat, went through this hole at bat, and at the end of at bat, he strikes out. And he, like, tosses his bat and takes his, like, elbow pad and helmet off and throws it towards because that was ended the inning. And the ump throws him out. Like, he didn't say a word. Like, he had a little bit, he was, like, disappointed. You could tell he was kind of mad that he didn't think that last pitch was a strike or whatever. But the ump tosses him. Anyway, long story short, I agree with you.
Is there a certain point where the city will start benefiting financially from the stadium? I mean, my worry is the converse of that.
I mean,
where if this doesn't take off, which, like I said, my gut tells me this shit ain't going to happen.
I think 100% we're going to get like 5 years, and it's going to be like, woo, this was awesome, this is great, everybody's going up, everybody's doing stuff, blah, 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 and then attendance starts dropping. I agree with you there. But really the key to the conversation is the surrounding development. Baseball is a bonus on top of the surrounding development. The $140 million of other stuff around it, the multi-use, like 5-6 story buildings that they're wanting to put up, that it's like retail, restaurant, ground floor, maybe some commercial office type space, and then residential on top. That kind of shit's where the money's at long term for the city county. And that's not going anywhere. And as long as there is...
I guess it depends on what kind of retail they're looking at. Because, I mean, like we've talked about, a lot of brick and mortar retail places are fucking struggling.
Sure. But I think you'll have a brewery, or at least a couple of bar, gastropubs, whatever you want to call them. Right. They'll get in there and they'll do well. I think you'll get some. I mean, one of the things to me is there's no grocery downtown. There's one liquor store on Gay Street. I think a liquor store would do real well right there, especially if there's housing on top of it. I think like a general, like, small convenience store, fresh market kind of whatever, something like down there with all the residential that's going in. Downtown, Market Square, Old City, all that stuff, all that residential, all the residential that's going in there that has to get in their car and go out of town to go get groceries instead of having local grocery. As far as I know.
No, I thought you can order groceries online.
That's true. You can get delivery groceries. It's true.
I think Amazon's doing like same day, like 2-hour delivery shit. I'm like, how are you doing this?
Because they get it from Whole Foods. Amazon bought Whole Foods.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Anywho,
I don't know.
That's where the money's at for the baseball stadium. For us, for me and you, John Q. Citizen, and what it does for us long term, it's going to bring up the city coffers. It's going to bring up the county coffers long term, because we're going from,
if all goes well.
Not even. I mean, if all goes okay, it doesn't have to go well. It just has to be there, and it has to have businesses in it and people living down there.
We're talking about like fill half capacity will be good.
Again, a stadium, the games themselves and events going on down there, they don't need to have great turnout. It doesn't matter, 0.5%, 10%, whatever. The capacity that's of concern is the development that goes around it. because if that big complex he's building around it, if the retail's full and all those rents are getting paid, whatever those businesses are collecting sales tax. Right. But the big number is $140 million in property tax. That's a city and county property tax property. Now, some of those aren't going to hit the rolls for 15 years.
City and county property tax?
Because the entire county pays county property tax. If you're in the city, you pay city property tax on top of your county property tax.
That's right. Yeah.
And so that'll be the big money, is the property tax and the sales tax generated from it. And since we're doing it the way we're doing it, with the states just giving us a lump sum instead of doing the tax shuffle, all 9.25% goes where it's supposed to go and does what it's supposed to do, except for what happens inside the stadium.
All right.
Inside the stadium goes to pay itself. All those taxes go to pay itself. And so the state school budget rises.
What if I can start just trying to selling anything and everything inside that stadium?
It's not it's
Smokey's branded IKEA furniture on sale.
It's not an advantage. They're still paying sales tax. It's just where the sales tax is going.
Right.
It's not an advantage one way or the other.
Well, I thought they were getting more money off of that special tax zone, which is now just the stadium themselves. So they would benefit greater.
Who's they?
The Sports Authority?
No, they would. Yeah, if the more sales generated inside the stadium would pay the bonds off quicker. Yes, because everything else is kind of fixed number stuff. It doesn't change.
Yeah. That's where economics is kind of messed up with me as far as bonds and what's actually going back into people's pockets, or if it's just paying off loans of other things.
Right. But long term, point being is long term, I don't think, as long as the development goes up around it, we should win. With the housing market the way it is in town already, any housing that goes in there is going to get filled. People are going to buy those condos or rent those apartments or whatever. They'll get done. They will. Who moves in is the conversation. What type of person moves in, whether it's young professionals, families, whatever, that can kind of change some of the surrounding activities, because if you have a bunch of families that move in there with kids, it changes what's going on versus a bunch of 20-somethings that are party people.
I think I'm trying to coincide that with whatever the hell Amazon's doing with the old East Town, which the guy I work with, I guess, used to work there, and apparently East Town has a basement that they used to use as like one of their storage.
Not no more.
That's what I said. I saw pictures, where they were tearing down the building, and I wonder if they dug down into that as well, or if it would be a waste of their time to dig down to sub-ground level.
I assume
left that there and just kind of took everything down to.
I assume they're just going to pour a big old slab of concrete, polish that up, put a frame on it, and.
I thought they were going to leave some of the skeleton of it there.
Put like 10 miles of shelving in, and stack it and stack it and stack it.
They could have kept the shelving that was already there.
No, they couldn't. We bought some of it. All of us did. That was weird. That was fun when Max and I and his missus, and some of us went in there and we bought some different shelvings from some different places that show. Well, we got Foot Locker, and we got shelving from Foot Locker.
No, this place was American Eagle,
and he bought the register station from American Eagle, I think it was, that they put in her crafting workshop room, whatever. But it's weird walking around there empty. It's real weird. It's neat. It's kind of fun, but also really weird.
It used to be the food court,
Yeah, it's like all boarded up and everything was closed down, just like caution tape everywhere. But to go back, I just don't I'm trying to find the holes in the baseball project issue, and there's not. Other than
I know about this for what's the Nats big pushback against it?
Really, it's we shouldn't take the risk. We shouldn't put ourselves in harm's way. We shouldn't help a dude.
What do they see as the risk?
We shouldn't help a rich dude get richer. They cite all sorts of examples. Eric put the best one that I didn't think of in the whole conversation. He's like, look at Sevierville. I was like, they have a baseball team. If this goes through, they don't have a baseball team.
Okay.
But he says that, and then I talked to Scott from the Compass about it, and he was saying, well, Sevierville probably doesn't really care. If you really look at the brass tacks of Sevierville's situation, they're probably better off selling that piece of land to somebody to develop into something different, or they'll redevelop it and make more money and bring in more tax revenue than the baseball stadium ever did anyway. So that might not be the best example.
Long, and I don't think I don't think the stadium was really used for anything else.
But you got Randy Pace, who's pitched a fit about it, and he put the reference of the Jersey City Mudcats or whatever the fuck it was up in where he used to be mayor or whatever, and the shit that went on there, and they built this beautiful stadium and then tore it down because the team went bankrupt. The difference I see in this one is, again, it's that $140 million complex around it. Baseball or not, that complex is going to get filled up. And baseball fails, and the team gets... I mean, I don't see
how long has he owned that land? I mean, why has he not built it up now? I mean, downtown's been building up the past 15 years.
I don't know how long he's owned the land. That's a good question. We should find the answer. I mean, he's been picking it up for a while, and I would say his governor run was part of the play for him, part of the timing. Having not gotten the governorship, it probably upped his timeline. He was probably, I would think he was. I think this. My assumption is
makes more money as the UT president.
Probably, but my assumption.
No, probably.
But that's not the anyway. My assumption is that this plan was in the works, but he was going to try to time it out when they actually ran out of the lease in Sevierville County, and they didn't have to bother because apparently that, like Scott said,
lease goes through. He said a couple more years.
Yeah, I think it goes to 26. So there's going to be a number of years where they're paying both whatever we agree on here and Sevier County's rent, regardless of what Sevier County does.
Who's paying that?
The Boyd Sports.
Okay.
They'll be paying rent on both facilities for a couple of years.
Boyd Sports is different than the Sports Authority?
Yes.
Okay.
Boyd Sports is Boyd Sports.
Okay.
Owns the Smokies.
Is there anything else a part of Boyd Sports?
He owns pieces of a couple of different minor league teams.
Huh.
It's on his website.
Yeah.
Because, just an individual has randyboyd.com. But it's so weird. I mean, I understand he's a politician too, but it's so weird that he has a website. Just like, hey, here's my website, all about me, all my stuff. Yeah, he owns Smokies, the River Raiders, the Doughboys,
Johnson City Doughboys,
the Greenville Flyboys, Memphis Redbirds, and Kingsport X-Men. Hey, you want to take a road trip to Missouri through Memphis? Take 40 across the river there?
I think there's a little issues right now with it.
Yeah, I don't... that's
they did just reopen. I didn't realize they closed Mississippi River down right there. Temporarily. I knew they closed the road bridge.
Maybe you could fix that crack with $13.5 million. Dun, 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 dun. That's
but I guess that was precautionary in case the bridge fell. The only reason I could think they would close down commercial traffic going underneath the bridge on the Mississippi River, which shutting down traffic going down the Mississippi River is much, well, I don't know, financially, I don't know how much it would cost more because you've got a lot of freight that's going over.
Well, yeah, but with
tractor trailer going
with all that freight,
bridge.
there's other options to get across the river. There ain't other options to get down the river.
Right.
So
there are. You just got to unload it, put it on a whole bunch more trucks versus barges.
Yeah. You're. I would think that it is a much bigger hassle to be shutting the river down for a period of time.
That's why it opened up pretty fast.
Yeah. But that's a federal issue anyway. I mean, it's an interstate highway bridge. I'm sure it's some conjunction with the state, but
I was about to say, yeah, if it's over the river, does Arkansas and Tennessee split it 50-50?
I don't know.
That's on your all side.
No, it is property of the federal government. It's federal property. It's
an
the federal interstate system. Now, I don't know, some state.
Well, no, they're interviewing TDOT.
I'm sure TDOT's contracted to do the work and manage it and shit like that, but financially it comes out of the Federal Highway Safety, whatever.
Transportation, Highway, and Safety Administration.
Yeah. And to put a nail in the baseball stadium thing, and then we can move on officially. I'm having a hard time finding where the holes are in the plan. Really, it comes down to, do we want the team
Obviously, they've already found some holes because they keep changing the damn plan.
What would they change?
They changed the tax zone. They changed.
That was just a better version of the plan. The tax, the way the state, in my opinion, for the grand scheme of things, that's a better version of how it could go down. Is the way the state said, we'll just give you a lump sum.
See, I wonder if some of it was like just public optics of it and getting like more public support behind it.
Well, I think
when they first heard about it, they're like, "Oh, well, yeah, he wants to build a stadium because he owns all them shops that's going to be down there. He's going to make a hell of a lot of money." Like,
well, but you also have the
like, well, no, we'll just do just a stadium. They're like, okay, well, that don't sound so bad.
Well, but I think too is you have a state and local budget for that matter that's got more wiggle room than they anticipated given the last year. Like everybody slashed budgets, assuming that things are going to be bad, but sales tax actually was up. Not as much as normal growth, but it was actually up. We were all planning on an even or a loss in revenue this year, tax revenue this year, and we beat it. And so there's extra leftover money from last year's budget essentially that we're trying to burn on stuff. Which I think that's what this was, and it's like the state's like, well, we'd rather burn this now and then keep collecting our normal style stuff than have some weird long-term thing where we got to keep up with this thing. And, if 5 years down the road we have a little bit of a slump or something like that, we don't want to not be collecting from this boom zone, for lack of a better word. What else has changed? I haven't really heard anything else change. The big one at play that I've heard is they want community agreements. I guess
looking at it from the outside, it sounds like they've changed a little bit of it, but I could just be assuming that.
Like the big one to me that's really still at play that I think is the only real pushback is the community agreements, like in writing, Boyd Sports with East Knoxville Chamber and East Knoxville community leadership and shit like that. Guaranteeing that he's going to hire. This is one that's been talked about, that he's going to hire contractors to do some of the install work that have offices and buildings and employees that live in the East Knoxville downtown area, like getting all that stuff in writing, where Boyd's like, I'll do it, but I'm not doing it in writing. Like that's my understanding. I don't know if he said that officially, but he's been very vocally willing to say, yeah, I'm in. I'll do whatever we need to do. I want everybody to be involved. I want everybody to make money off of this, blah, 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 blah. He said it, but he hasn't done it yet. But nothing's here yet, so he can't do it yet. But we can't guarantee that he's going to do it once it's here if we don't have it in writing. And so there's push for him to put stuff in writing, like who he's going to hire. Maybe not who he's going to hire, but guaranteeing he's going to hire a certain percentage of the contract work.
A true bidding process.
Not a true bidding process. And that's the problem with it. Realistically, if you're the one East Knoxville plumber, I don't know that there's not more than one plumber, but I'm just saying if you're the one company in East Knoxville that's a plumber, you don't have to do the best bid for Randy Boyd's baseball project, because he promised, if he does it in writing and promises he'll use it, promises he's going to use an East Knox business for his contracting work, and there's only a certain number of the contractors for the different contractors he needs. This is the problem with a thing like this, is that what's the goal? Is the goal to put people to work, or is the goal to get a good product? Because they could be the same thing, but they're not necessarily the same thing. Because you could have a better plumber that can do better work for cheaper.
More with transparency as to where that money's going.
So what do you mean?
As far as guaranteeing that wherever that money's coming from, it's not going to a preferred vendor, I guess.
But it is. But that's what they're asking for. They're asking for the East Knoxville community is asking for them to be the preferred vendor. That's what that is what the community agreement is. That's not. Let's see if I can word that better, because that's not officially what was said, but that is what's implied in the statement. That's what's implied in this community benefits agreement that they're asking for, is that they're asking Boyd Sports to guarantee that a certain percentage of the contractors they use come out of the community that's based around where the stadium's going. Now, there could be the best. The best welder I know lives over there, or at least his shop is over there. One of the best computer programmers that I know. His business is over there.
I would assume any intelligent business person has already planned out who and what they're going to need to put a certain project together, and already has a list of names.
But my point is this community benefits agreement that people are pushing for.
Right.
Because it could be both ways. It could be it keeps Randy Boyd from using his buddy and helping his buddy out with taxpayer dollars. And this forces him to use other people than who he was planning on using. But his buddy could be a better, cheaper option. It could do better work for less money, faster, all the different metrics that you want to use on it. But he can't use his buddy anymore because he's promised to use a company that's located right next door. And it's not to throw shade at the company right next door. It's just these are the facts of the game.
Right.
So
I guess no bid contracts would be one thing.
Right. Which that's outside. I mean, the Sports Authority, I assume, we are building the stadium. Randy Boyd is not. So it's the Sports Authority that gets to play those games anyway. I think. I guess we're letting Gem be the developer.
And then they subcontract to...
Right, and then they subcontract everything out. But either way, like I have mixed feelings on that part of things. Like I get the idea. Yes, we want him to use local people and local contractors and local whatever. But at the same time, if we are going to specify who he's allowed to use, that doesn't mean he's getting the best, cheapest, fastest available. That means he's getting the ones that the community wants him to use. And it's like, budget's an issue. That's what everybody's talking about, the budget part of it. Well, if budget's an issue, we can't necessarily automatically limit the available contractors. But past that, long term, assuming we stay relatively near budget and all that stuff, it gets in place. It's 2023. We're a couple weeks into the 2023 baseball stadium. Smoking's plays a couple games. I've already played a couple games down there. All the businesses are getting filled up. The apartments are getting filled up. All the different stuff that's going on around it. I can't. Maybe it's an optimism thing, but as even if the baseball part fails,
have they given any timeline as far as how quickly they can get the surrounding area built up?
I mean, Boyd said that it's all one project to him.
Oh, okay.
Is that what he doesn't want to happen is have the stadium done and then start building his shit.
Right.
Because he wants, as soon as the stadium's done and people start, whether the first event there is a baseball game or something else, he wants the first event there, everything be open. Because what he doesn't want is construction going on with the first set of events. Right. And so again, when you look at when I look through all the funding and stuff like that, the people that are going to take part in it are the ones that are paying for it. I can see the baseball team itself failing. I can see the majority of the use of the stadium falling off because of the baseball team failing. But long term, I don't see that it won't be used, and that the surrounding project, its value in and of itself, is going to cover whatever we spend on the baseball part.
I mean, I haven't followed the Smokies, but I don't think they've won any championships.
Yeah, but they're a Cubs affiliate. That is a fan base of comfortable losers. They've been, they did win a World Series a couple of years ago, finally.
Because these Tennessee people give a shit about the Cubs.
I don't know. I mean, but the Cubs are a national, the Cubs are like the Cowboys. Like the Dallas Cowboys, for whatever reason, are like America's team or whatever. The Cubs are like that in baseball to me. They are not as super local.
To you or to most of America?
To most of America. I would say the Cubs. So? I would say the Cubs are up there in whether you're a baseball fan or not. You know who the Cubs are. And if you are a baseball fan, you don't hate the Cubs.
I don't know about now. I know for years, the White Sox were more popular than the Cubs were.
Well, it's because of Obama. Obama was a White Sox fan.
That was where the Big Hurt played.
Frank Thomas.
That's right.
Just flexing our baseball knowledge.
And they had a catcher, Carter Fisk.
Fuck, I don't know.
Carlton Fisk.
I don't know. I do remember Carlton Fisk, but I think the Cubs, I don't know.
The Cubs, you had Harry Carey.
Had Harry Carey, had Ryan Sandberg.
Sammy Sosa.
Ryan Sandberg, Sammy Sosa. But I mean, Wrigley Field in and of itself is one of the most amazing stadiums in all sports. Period. To me. But in reality, facts,
like
objectively,
old candlestick.
Comiskey's a joke compared to Wrigley. Boston. What's Boston?
Fenway.
Yeah, Fenway is one of those two. I mean, it's just there are a handful of special stadiums in baseball, and Wrigley's on the top of the list. Yeah. And that relationship, I think, goes beyond with the team, and people like the Cubs because of it.
All right. I think that was a good nail we put in.
Sure. All right. What else we got?
Oh.
Straw buying guns. Go on, Joe. I was just going back to the dude that gave Anthony the gun, or that bought the gun before Anthony got arrested or got busted. Stupid.
I still don't think we found out much else about anything else that's going on with the other murders. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Not even with the new snitch program?
What do you have against that?
Do it?
So, what do you have against that?
I don't know. I don't know that that's. It doesn't seem like it doesn't seem like the any snitching is been beneficial in this current situation. We've been putting snitch programs in place on.
Apparently, we canceled Crime Stoppers. What did they say, like 15, 20 years ago? Crime Stoppers stopped working. I don't know if that was locally or nationally. Crime Stoppers,
which we were bringing it back. That's the new one I was joking about. But I mean, a couple of these we've had specific. I know one of the ones, no knocks are coming out, and I'm happy with that. Yeah. That's a state thing. I think that's a good one. That'll lead to less dead people.
Pass that federally as well.
I got snaps. That was weird. Deidre Harper had her on. I was going off. I was ranting about how stupid the war on drugs is. No, she was just actually literally like I was ranting about how stupid the war on drugs is, and how that's probably one of the hardest things on people of color as far as all this. If we're really going to talk about systemic racism issues and stuff like that, I think that the war on drugs is one of the top ones. And while I was mid whatever, she's like, I was like, dude, all right, I had to focus. Like I've never gotten snaps whilst talking before.
Is that the polite way to?
I guess that's the nice way to clap.
Is that the old like 60s beat nip? Like, yeah, man, dig it.
Yeah. That was weird. I was not expecting that. I don't know. I'm not mad at it. It was kind of neat, but I'm just saying, like, I've never experienced being snapped at.
Is that an agreement?
I believe, yeah. She was nodding along while I was doing it. Huh. Because I think it is. It's one of those. I mean, I'm still mad about the poor representation of what's actually happening with KPD coming out of the schools. Yeah. I think that's just stupid. And I don't know. Here's.
Well, I mean, you thought it was a political play anyway. But.
I do. I truly do. But I think that part of that. I think there's two political plays going on at the same time. I think Kincannon's doing it for budgetary and political purposes. But I think the Knox County GOP and some of the other right-leaning people around town, Mary Jacobs and Sheriff Spangler, among others, are playing off the lack of knowledge of the citizenry and putting out the implication that Kincannon's taking police out of schools. It's a true statement, but it's misleading in what's actually happening. 15 of the 150 total uniformed officers that are in the school are coming out of the schools.
Right.
And we're still freaking out about it. People are still freaking out about it. Like, no new conversation about whatever. They're taking the masks out at the end of the school year.
So, yeah.
So if you got your kids in summer school, which every fucking kid in Knox County schools was on the list of eligible for summer school, because everybody's behind. I wonder why.
Or did they do any kind of testing to declare that people are behind, or was that going off of teachers as far as what they were able to teach?
Whatever evals and TCAPs and all the other shit they normally use, whatever the normal metric is.
Did they do TCAPs this year?
Yeah, they did TCAPs this year. Big old pissing match as usual. Bunch of parents hate them TCAPs. I don't like them either. I don't see the value, but
yeah, I'm still kind of split. I mean, it's hard to make a metric to try to figure out to make sure that what you're paying teachers to do and what as far as like the parents' expectations of them sending their kids to a public school and making sure they are
right, or my expectation
education.
as a community member who's paying taxes to fund said things.
I mean, I would expect some kind of metric just to make sure. Then, like, well, hey, can we give them some kind of test to make sure that they have learned something this year, just to be able to evaluate.
Right.
I mean, to where you start, changing up how much school funding or how much teacher gets paid or whatever. When that starts getting thrown into it, I think that's where, it starts disturbing more people.
Well, but I mean, the problem is that like initially they didn't grade it. I mean, they graded it for data purposes, but it wasn't a grade for the student.
Right.
And
then
then
they're
they're
like,
like,
is now?
No, because they're like, we have to, if we don't, then the students don't bother trying and it doesn't give us good data. Because if I don't have to do this, I'm not going to try.
Right.
And so I look like an idiot, but I'm not. But the teacher gets in trouble because I'm an idiot on paper. And so they started using it as a grade and stuff like that. And, I don't know. I mean, my problem with it is the simple of we're teaching to take tests. We're not teaching. And like explicitly to the point where like 3 weeks before TCAPs, everything stopped. Like all the stuff that we've been doing all year, all the regular, this is how we do this is our spelling list this week, this and all that. It stops and this is TCAP prep homework for tonight. This is TCAP prep homework for tonight. And it's explicitly so. It wasn't even trying to pretend like it wasn't.
Because I would assume because funding started getting tied to that. I think that's where you started getting, schools that were doing, they were doing okay. And then all of a sudden they started doing poorly on the TCAPs.
Right, but it's also
the state was like, oh, you did shitty. We're going to give you less money next year.
And it's also a teacher.
Only furthers that.
It's also a teacher evaluation.
Right.
They use it for teacher evals. And so if you have a teacher that has a majority of their students that do poorly on the TCAP, that reflects poorly on the teacher, and then they get rid of teacher for it. Or they could change the teacher's pay or get
10 years
fired.
ago or so, there was, I want to say it was at one of the Atlanta school districts. They got busted for, I guess they had some kind of organized cheating scandal. I don't know if they were necessarily changing. I think some of them got to the point where they're actually changing, I guess, some of the Scantron forms.
Damn.
To make themselves look better. Or make their district look better, which then got them more funding and also made their students look better.
Because the problem to me is the same problem I have with almost all government shit. It's that it has to go too far away. Is that it has to go to Nashville, and Nashville has to have a whole team of people that have to crunch all the fucking numbers from these TCAP tests and then churn that data out and then explain what that data means. Because, again, it goes back to the same idea of, is it truly important that a 3.0 in Knoxville and a 3.0 in McMinn County and a 3.0 in Nashville and a 3.0 in Jackson needs to mean something? If you get a 3.0 from a state of Tennessee high school,
I think so, yeah.
Does it need to mean something equal?
I would think so, yeah.
I mean, I think I don't know. I don't know if it does or not. Because does it mean something from Atlanta to Knoxville? Does it need to be equal that way?
I assume it's going to mean something on the collegiate level.
I mean, you're right. I agree that there is value.
You doctorate from Harvard. You got your doctorate from Trump University. Which one sounds more prestigious and is going to get you further in life?
Okay, but what does that? I mean, so in your analogy, the state of Tennessee is Trump University and Georgia's Harvard?
Well, no, just a lower funded, I guess school that doesn't have higher standards.
Right, but
or doesn't have the same standards.
Basically. Right, but again, with your example, you're trying to make an entire
an
state,
exaggerated standard, yes.
Right, but an entire state of how many thousand schools we have in the state of Tennessee, just high schools.
Right.
How many thousand high schools you have in the state of Tennessee?
You got, 90-something counties, 80-something counties?
Right. How many total high schools that we have in the state and compared to one college? And for the analogy's sake.
To one college.
For the analogy's sake.
Okay.
And that, you're 100% correct that a Pillissippi, a 4-year degree from Pillissippi and a 4-year degree from Harvard mean totally different things for a myriad of reasons. and 4 years of high school in Tennessee and 4 years of high school in Georgia mean different things for a myriad of different reasons.
Well, even that shouldn't be that different.
Right. Maybe. I don't know. But because, again, it's one of those, what's the goal? What's the point? What are we trying to do? And if the standard answer is...
Trying to educate our populace.
Right.
So they can function and be betterments to society for everyone.
Correct. I agree with that. But how does a universal standard help attain that goal? You know what I'm saying? Like that's what I mean. Like I agree that it makes sense. Like it feels natural to say, kid graduated from high school with 3.5. Either it's from Honolulu or Anchorage or Tallahassee or wherever. That means something, right? I agree that there's an inherent something that's like, all right, he's relatively smart, not super smart, not a 4.25 or whatever, because you got some of those weird things where you can get above 4.0s or some shit. But, relatively smart, should be able to do, whatever it is, whatever particularly interests them. We can mold that into a career of some value where he can contribute to society, or she, and be out there and do things and live a happy life and raise a family and continue to grow the nation as we go. But how does having an actual standard, like an actual fixed standard that means a thing, that takes a whole lot of work and a whole lot of money to manage and maintain just inside the state, make that 3.5 more valuable than it, because it's uniform? Because how does the uniformity add value?
I mean, I guess I just think in the converse of it, that if you don't have a standard, I think that would just make things that much worse.
But I mean,
I know at least in our high school, you have
the standard,
the technical college prep to where,
right? But the standard
you could have a 4.0 and take a lot more electives and not having that higher level class, which I think that's how kids get above 4.0s.
But does the standard say X, or does it just say that Nashville, Memphis, Knoxville are equal? Does it say what equal means in the sentence? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, so again, on our
they're educational standards, yes.
To what end? I mean, to how? Like, to who? Like, who sees that and knows what that means? Other than the general, I know that I got a 3.6 or whatever when I graduated high school. So
I think that was like a 2.9.
I got a 1. I graduated, or my first semester at UT was a 1.8. If it makes you feel any better. And I think I graduated with
that's college.
I think I graduated with a 2.75 from UT, which is why I do.
I also failed my limit of classes in high school.
Yeah, I didn't know that. And I still like you. Anyway. Point.
You said that in the past tense.
Point is, I don't know. I struggle to see the actual value in it. I agree with you 100%. Like, it feels like it means something. It feels like there's value, but I can't actually quantify that value in a way that makes it worth the time and effort.
I think it does, and it should mean something.
Should, but does it? Like, does it really?
I think so, yes.
What? What does it mean? What does a 3.0 from a Tennessee school mean?
With what we have in place as far as standardized learning, you teach a state-approved curriculum.
Uh-huh. Includes English.
Curriculum.
Includes English that we are from. Yes, go ahead. Please say.
I assume they do that C word and they do a B word. I mean, we have approved educational standards statewide.
Okay,
I don't think there's federal educational standards, but we have state approved.
Okay, so but again, what does it mean if we sat down and we got a group of kids from spread out from all over the state of Tennessee, we got them in this room, and we were talking to them about their high school experience and blah 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 blah. What do we know about these kids because of the 3.0 from a Tennessee school?
We know that they at least knew enough for that test. Whether or not they retained it, I mean, that is debatable.
Okay, let me put it in.
I took many college courses that I had good grades in, and then I didn't remember all of it.
All right, so let me try the hypothetical again in a more specific context.
Okay.
We have a group of applicants that are coming because podcast is blowing up, right? We're busy. I need an assistant to help me with scheduling, to help me with a little bit of the tech stuff, or even better, maybe forget that whole side of it. I need an engineer to actually come in here, tweak the knobs, do all the tech side stuff, get all our stuff uploaded, get the sound better, do all that kind of stuff. I need an engineer to come in here and work the sound. Get 10 applicants. We look through their resumes and applications. They all have about a 3.0 from Tennessee high schools. Of all the other stuff on the application, forget all the other stuff on the application. What does that 3.0 from a Tennessee high school tell us about this applicant?
It tells you something, but not a lot. That's why you have an interview process if you want to get into talking about jobs and whatnot.
I'm just saying, for the millions and millions and millions of dollars
it gives you in that position a starting point to then rule out certain ones. You can say, okay, I'm going to take all these applicants that have a 2.5 and below, or I'm going to go ahead and take those off the table.
Right, because what does it tell us about the 2.5s? What do we know about the 2.5s? What do we know about the 3s that we don't know about the 2.5s? Really nothing.
There's a general assumption they didn't try as hard in the education.
They didn't try as hard. They're not as smart. Maybe, for my sake, for the specific job I'm looking for, maybe they were just computer dorks that would be really, really good at this job, but they didn't do well in English. They were pretty good at math, but they didn't really care for history. They didn't care for the other parts.
That's true. That's where employers struggle with that.
But again,
even just kids coming out of college are like, okay, you did great in college. There's a lot of employers that they don't even care like what your major was, but the fact that you went to college already just shows you're willing to actually put forth an effort to.
My dad's whole
yourself.
thing was it doesn't matter what you learn, it's that you got the piece of paper. The whole point of college is to get the piece of paper.
Yes.
And I get
that's a sad fact of society, and it's something we're trying to work past.
So if you're agreeing with me that for an employer's sake, it doesn't really tell me much. It's a method for me to limit my pool just because I can use that specific number to cut people out. Not that it really tells me whether this 3.0 or 2.5 is better for the job I have, but it's a way for me to cut down from 100 applicants to 10. Fine. That's got a little bit of value to me as the employer in the situation. What other things are out there that have value? What other positions or places does this number have a value that makes sense other than an employer? What other person is going to use that number as an evaluation of this person for some reason?
I can't think of any more.
Because that's really what it's for. I mean, really all it is for employers to be able to have some preconceived knowledge of this applicant in front of them to help them narrow down their list and have some information about this person other than just straight up, well, I can write my name and address and I can tell you about myself, but this number is a real number and you can look it up. Right. I can't lie about this. About this number.
I got 3 friends that'll put some good words in for me.
Right, but this is a number that somebody else produced and put on me, and you can double check that one. Realistically.
It's not a number that somebody else put in for you. It's a number given to you.
Right. Somebody else. The state put it onto me for the things I did.
Didn't put it onto you. It is because of what you did in school. The number was given to you.
Okay.
The state's not just like, oh, I'm going to give them a 2.9.
Sure. Correct. Whatever. But
they've earned that. Well, I don't know about
that. An employee of the state wrote the fucking number down next to your name and put it on file. That is what I mean by the state put the number on you. Not that you didn't earn the number, but the state put the number there.
Okay.
All right. So other than for employers, you agree that there's not a lot of use for it other than for employers. We've already found a quick example, which you also agreed with, that it doesn't necessarily help me find a better employee or not anyway.
All right.
How many millions of dollars does it cost to have this standard, unified, equals out, means something thing? For what value? What is the value? Because the 2 examples that we threw out are like, meh. It's not really that important. It's not really that valuable. It doesn't actually help the situation for the people that would use it.
Okay, so do we allow every school, every elementary school just kind of pick their own curriculum. Every middle school just pick their own curriculum. High schools pick their own curriculum.
I mean, I think school boards
choose their own standards.
I would accept that answer to school boards.
I mean, run down that hypothetical and explain to me how that would be a better system.
A better system?
Yes.
It'd be a more efficient system.
Efficient in what way?
How much money is wasted in Nashville?
Okay, financially better. Okay.
Well, if the number one thing that all the fucking people that are super excited about schools, all they want is more money, if the number one solution to all the problems we have with schools is more money, because that's what everybody argues, if the number one solution is more money, well, then quit wasting fucking money in Nashville, and we can have more money locally.
I would think it could possibly run to where it would actually cost more, because, I mean, with standardized textbook, I'm assuming you're able to get a better deal on, per textbook.
Dude, fucking textbooks are a racket.
Right, I
above
agree.
And beyond all things.
Oh, no, it's fucked up, the handful. It's like 2 or 3 companies throughout the entire U.S. that create textbooks for the United States.
Right, and that's a separate little sub-problem thing, and you're correct that the state has a little bit more swing against those 3 or 4 companies than each individual school district doing it themselves. You're correct.
I was just thinking that one little small caveat that I would think it would cost us more money if, you've got individual school districts that are picking their own individual course book that they want to use.
Maybe you could have some other companies producing textbooks.
I mean, a lot of it's going online, but yeah.
But I think even those, it's the same. Cusp. But it's the same companies and they charge the same. I already found that. That's true. That's a fact. Like if you got the like up there on the bookshelf behind you, I've got some literature textbook that I got at UT, not a high school book, but like they're doing digital books now, and it's the same book as the hard copy book, and it costs the school system the same amount of money as the hard copy book for the digital version.
Damn.
Yeah. But if you had a bunch more players in the game, both on the school board side and producers of textbooks, maybe the cost would come down.
Possible, yeah.
And so if you had a bunch of different school districts that wanted a bunch of different stuff and had different companies vying to be the vendor of textbooks to a bunch of different school districts, you should have costs come down with it. But there's probably more racket in that game than is even beginning to control on.
I mean, with the system as it stands, where school systems are getting rewarded for better grades, that may encourage some that.
But it's the state
that don't have the
state is the one doing that, though. The state is the one that puts these things in place with the TCAP, where if you suck at the TCAP, you take money.
I'm going to your hypothetical of each individual county or each individual school having their own standards. To where if the state system is still in that setup to where you're rewarded and your funding is based upon how well your kids are doing, that may encourage some with lower ethics to then lower their standards to make.
Okay, so another way to think about it, another way to me to think about it too is like McMinn County, right? Okay, so again, it's one of those things that we don't have a good conversation on. Is what is the goal? What is the actual goal, regardless of number standards, whatever bullshit? What do we want? We want educated kids that turn into functional, useful adults out getting work, preferably higher paying jobs, because higher paying jobs produce more tax money, and blah blah blah, right? That's what we want out of our kids. Well, in Knox County, we have a whole plethora of different jobs available in Knox County, from like Brunswick Boats and some of the office stuff that goes in there. We have we've got the federal building down here, so you could have federal employees that work here.
Brunswick doesn't
sorry, engines. Sea-Ray, my bad.
Yeah, they're part of
Sea-Doo,
they're part of Brunswick, but Brunswick is the large corporation. I'm sorry.
You get the fucking point. We have companies that have headquarters here, and you have high-level office jobs as well as engineering. We have Oak Ridge and all that kind of shit right there. We have all this different stuff going on here in this county. And so our standard for our high schoolers might be a little higher because of the job opportunities that we have locally. Where if you get out into like a McMinn County or something like that, I don't know why I always pick on McMinn County. It's just one that jumps to mind. Jefferson County, whatever the fuck you want to do. That their students have different directions that they're going to go locally. Different jobs types that are available in their township. Because one of the things that they do quite often, even now, is they'll have corporate public partnerships where you have like a Denso that goes into Maryville. Right. And then they'll have a welding class that starts working into some of the curriculum in some of the high schools, so that you have kids that are learning the specific task of the specific job to go in and work at Denso on the other side.
Right.
And so that is a thing that Blount County or whatever kind of adjusted to, because they had a little bit of flexibility on that kind of stuff. But if you take that on a more full scale conversation of it, you take the state out of the conversation. A McMinn County, some of the smaller counties that have different types of jobs available than some of the bigger counties have, the school's goal changes by what the jobs are for the kids coming out. You know, some of the shit counties that are on the way out and they don't have anything going on, I don't know what you do with them. That's a problem. I don't know the answer for that one. But if you have a good, decent-sized county, you got good things going on, you have some sort of manufacturing facility in there, some sort of this, that, and the other, you look to the future of what these kids are going to do for jobs. Are they going to get the fuck out of town? If that's the goal, then get them the fuck out of town and figure out the education that they need to go into one of the bigger cities and get work. That's the game to play, but the state's trying to level that so that a Knoxville kid has the same target as a Nashville kid as a McMinn County kid. And it's like, well, if they're not the same things, you're going to have some kid coming out of McMinn County thinking he's going to be an engineer, and there's no engineering work in McMinn County. I don't know if that's true or not. I'm making shit up. But my point is, we are trying to make one size fit all when it's not real. And so, what is the value in this statewide universal system?
I agree. Some of it's kind of system that we're kind of stuck in at the moment.
Right, and that's one of my big problems. The deeper I get into it, the more it's like, how do we push back on this? Because like the school boards, I am getting the feeling that other than stupid shit, and get mad at me if you want to, but stupid shit about mask policy and police interaction inside the school policy kind of shit. School board doesn't do dick. It all comes out of the state anyway. The state mandates all they fucking want to, and the school board's just trying to shuffle the pieces around. The school board to me is almost, not 100%, but it's right on the edge of, hey, look, you have your own representation, but they don't do anything. They don't have any real power to make any real changes. You've got to take that to the state. Like, it's such again, this is what I bitch all the time about how complex. Really, everything goes on in Nashville. Everything goes on in Nashville. And the local stuff is really just hey, you got your own government. They do stuff for you. No, they really don't.
I've been to look more into it. I can't remember if I've brought it up before on the show. But with Germany, went to the high school with a friend that I visited there. And they kind of had their high school set up a little bit more like college, where you kind of had a semi-major where you took classes focusing on certain areas. To where I'm assuming they maybe started in middle school or kind of early high school area, and maybe sat down with kind of like a guidance counselor type person to more try to like help steer you in a certain direction. To where our friend went through 13th grade into a major, but they kind of had where kids could stop at like 10th grade if they figured out, or if the kid knew already then. He's like, I'm totally fine with going, and being a parts stamper in a factory. He's like,
But that's statewide, or that's full country of Germany, or is that a locality?
That's what I didn't know if it was just the region, the state. I mean, they have German states. Right, so I don't know if it was a state that he was in that was like that, but I think at least the high school he was going to was set up like that, to where I think there was, kids that could, quote unquote, graduate in 10th grade. I'm assuming, you got a certificate saying, you only did 10th grade or whatever. Right.
But if you're going to do body work or whatever.
If you had no aspirations into being a doctor or, lawyer or whatever, you're like, okay, well, that's fine. I mean, that would save the state some money, save the country some money.
Yeah.
But also it may make that kid happier. He's like, hey, I can go ahead and I can start learning welding and, more vocational ed.
Right.
And that's something that America has gotten away from.
I think the apprenticeship system is one of those things that we don't do like we used to do, and I think that's a huge one. I don't know the history of apprenticeship well enough to know that. I mean, I do know that for a good chunk of it, it was near slave wages, kind of like you barely were working, but you were learning the job in the process. But like it was barely paid.
Properly used and educated, that role was being abused.
Right.
It's and that was free labor.
Yeah. And so there are some issues with that kind of system. But some, I mean, again, like I always ask the question, especially with school people, is like, what are the jobs? You know, I mean, my oldest just had his 11th birthday party. I got 7 more years of public school with him. What's it, 21? So what are the jobs in 2030? You know, what are we going to be doing in 2030? What is Knoxville going to look like in 2030?
And that's one of the big issues, you know, just with the growth of technology. You know, technology is just kind of exponentially growing, and society itself then changes.
Yeah. Yeah, he wants to be an engineer right now, which I think is sweet. But
10 years ago, Amazon isn't what it is now.
Yeah.
Or was not what it is now.
Right. And yeah, what will it be in 10 years from now?
No, markets have totally changed.
Yeah. And so it's interesting. Okay, so one last topic and we'll call it a night because it's getting late. I mean, there's a lot of talk about unemployment, and the Tennessee is killing unemployment July 1, I think.
Yeah, I saw that. So they restarted like adding more requirements to far as
they're killing the $300 bonus,
showing proof for finding jobs,
right? And so
and not turning down available jobs, basically.
Right. So there's a lot of talk about minimum wage, and especially the restaurant industries not getting employees back now that they're trying to hire. I've heard it a lot. I've heard it directly from bar restaurant owners that I know, as well as a bunch of conversation online and stuff like that about.
No, I did confirm that the state legislator was saying Copper-Stellar was having to close down certain places. That's all bullshit.
Okay. I don't remember.
No, sorry. I thought I brought that up before. Never mind.
You might have.
Continue.
I'm not saying you didn't bring it up. I don't. We talk about a lot of things.
That's true.
So anyway, a thought that was that I heard somebody talking about it is one of the problems, especially for restaurants, and you have these two different competing factors that are going on right now. You have the push for a raise in minimum wage, and you have coming off of the year of the pandemic and shutdowns and stuff like that.
Well, it's got mask issues.
Right. If you're a restaurant and you've somehow survived and you're trying to get back going right now, you might not be able to pay a higher wage to get re-rolling. And so at least some of the conversation at play is that people aren't going back to work because they're making more money on unemployment, or they don't want to come back because the same person that I was listening to made a good point. It's like, well, if you do the math and your unemployment is $10 an hour and you find a job for $12 an hour, you're really working full time for $2 an hour. Is $2 an hour work worth 40 hours a week?
Are you asking me? I assume that was a rhetorical question.
Both, you know. I mean, I'm just saying it's a weird spot that we're in right now because of the way the last year was, because of how the government reacted to it and stuff like that. And so, like, I go back and forth on how I feel about it because part of me is like, fuck McDonald's, they can burn. They can all burn if they don't want to pay more and they can't get employees. If people stop going because they're not going to sit for 15 minutes to wait on a fucking cheeseburger.
I did see McDonald's was raising theirs, but it's only McDonald's Corporation owned McDonald's,
which
not
is
necessarily
fucking
franchisees.
None of them, right?
And even then, I think they said it was like a 10% raise, but I think they said it came out to, average employee was between like 12 and 15, and then managers was like,
what did we make?
15 to 17.
$5.50 when we worked there? $5.35?
No, I think it was like 6 1/4.
Was it 6 1/4?
Maybe
Big
$6.75.
It's good times. You like a hot toss salad? Classic.
I like those McShaker salads.
That was a good move. Yeah,
that was a good idea.
Yeah, that's one of the ones that I didn't quite understand why that one went away. Of all the different crazy stuff that they come up with, I would say it was an interesting.
There's a lot of food waste.
There's a lot of interesting economics dynamics going on in this situation, and
I know there's a portion of the population that is complacent to sit around their ass, but I think most people don't want to sit around and just be doing nothing.
I mean, I don't know, like, because I agree and I don't agree, because I wouldn't be doing nothing, but had I had the opportunity to take unemployment all of last year, I would have been in here all day, every day. I would have been doing at least 5 shows a week, interviewing everybody all the time. I would have been 100% in this podcast and not going to work and not having schedule issues like I had last week.
Right.
because it would have been all about the podcast. I would have had time to invest in the future of the podcast. Now that's me personally. That's not other people. But if I'd gotten full time in the podcast, even though the podcast wasn't necessarily making money over the last year, and now that it's started to, I'd say we'd be ahead of this part of the game had I had the time to invest in it. I might be at a point where they're taking unemployment away, and I'm going, I built this thing, and it's starting to move the right direction. Is it worth going back to work for me or not? And it's a weird spot. And so I don't know, because unemployment numbers came out, and there's not that many unemployed here in Knox County. Like, Knox County's doing really well. And so all the restaurants that are short-staffed right now, I don't know what they're going to do, because it's not a lack. It's a lack of employees, period. Not willing employees, not people that are refusing to work, not people that are taking unemployment instead of. So it's going to be interesting to follow. I'm trying to work out the whole thing in my head. But anyway, what I wanted to get out in that is the same guy that brought up my extremist thing made that reference of, you got to think about it. If you're a restaurant that barely survived, and you've already been all you through your PPP loans and your restaurant recoveries and all the different stuff that's been available to you because you took it because you had to, because you needed to, which again, an unjustified pitch is everybody's pitching for it, because Jason Zachary, I believe, is one of the ones that's pushing was pushing to get rid of the unemployment thing, but he took like $1.2 million in PPP loans. It's like, he'll take free federal money, but he's going to take it away from hardworking people at home. It's like
business owner,
I guess. It might not be Zachary. I apologize if I'm mixing people up. There's a couple of people in the state that have taken significant PPP loans. I'm sure Manus was one of them too. Because you did. Everybody, if you were in business this year, you took the PPP loans. Right. If they were out there and you fit the criteria, you took the fucking loan. And it's a decent argument, but there is something at play here that is keeping people from work, that is making it. I can't imagine, like, that's what I can't figure out. I can't. Is it truly people are just like, I'm not going back to work for minimum wage? Maybe.
I think
even if it's with or without the unemployment benefits.
I think there's a certain element to that of, people that have been out of work for, months and have really started to reevaluate, what they're doing in life. Right.
And hopefully, I
haven't spent, this much time with my kids in years or whatever. Like, it's actually kind of nice. I'm actually able to be there for them and talk to them and get to know my kids instead of, dropping them off at school and then get home from work. We're just trying to have dinner, and then I'm trying to read them a bedtime story, make sure they get their homework
dinner,
done,
homework, bedtime, go.
Right. Yeah. The routine.
Yeah. I'm hopeful that there's a positive to that, in that we try to maybe relook at the way we do this game. I
think there's a lot of employers that, mentioned it before, that had, just little satellite offices, and they're like, we're spending money, on rent just to rent that space, and, having computer equipment there.
Right.
Here's a laptop. So much more money, but here's a laptop, and, we'll give you $35 a month to help, to compensate your internet or whatever, your internet bill.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be
can function just as well at home, and
right.
You're happier, we're happier, and we're saving money.
I think there's a lot of stuff that could be done, but I don't believe that the government can be the one doing it, and that's the catch for me. I think a 4-day work week is the right move. I think this
not a 4-day work week. I'd like to see more vacation time.
Right.
Compared to other industrialized nations,
right? But
off
the top of my head, though, I think one of the issue with that is it's really a cost of living game is the problem.
And that plays into it as well. Because we take it for granted where we live,
right? And I think one of the things too, though, is I think we as a general public don't take a real value of what we are to our employer in our relationships with our work and stuff like that. And so we accept the idea that you work 40 hours a week or you work 50 hours. Like some of the guys that work in the industry that I work in, they're like, I work a 60-hour week or whatever. That's normal. It's like, why? It's like, well, that's how they make money. It's like I understand that you might need that money or whatever too, but it's like, why? I mean, that's just ridiculous. 60 hours a week, and that you want to do that. And it's like, if you really want to do that, that's cool. But if that's just what you do, it's
just a situation that they're in. I'm sure some of those guys, have been with the company for 10, 15 years. They don't want to start over again.
Right. But
they're like, I've already put in 10 years.
Yeah.
Like,
but the
I might as well keep going. I'm going to be in a worse spot if I try to go somewhere else.
But the problem is like, we don't have this, like, we don't seem to have this worth thing. Cause like, I'm in the weirdest situation with my boss because I'm asking for things, and I'm not really asking. I'm kind of telling, but I'm not being dickish about it. I'm just like, dude, look, I'm happy to do the work. I don't dislike the job, but there are some things that I want. If I'm going to do this job long term, this is what I want to do. This is how I want to do it. And whether it's another week of vacation that's unpaid, I want a week off. I want one more week off a year or whatever. Why can't I have that conversation? Because it's so weird, because he comes back with me with all these stupid ass excuses, and it's like, dude, he's like, well, if I was like, I want to work 4 days a week. Like, I've been pushing to work 4 days a week. He's like, well, we don't do part-time employees. I was like, that's a choice. You can do part-time employees. And if you like me, and if you want me to do the job and continue to do the job, you need to make that decision on whether you're going to make that exception. It's not a big deal. I'm not trying to strong arm you on anything here. I'm just saying, like, if you want me and you want me to work for you, like, we've gotten to this place in societally that an employee is a subservient, and that's the problem. You are a servant to your boss, don't get me wrong, but not a complete. Like, it's a relationship. It's supposed to be a voluntary relationship. I come, give you my time, you pay me for my time.
Right. I mean, there's one thing that's really talked about, but I think some companies, try to say they have a policy on it as far as like discussing what you get paid with your coworkers. Well, it's like, no, you don't do that. It's like, no, there's no law saying that I can't talk to my coworkers and figure out how much you get paid. Like, it just causes an issue for you when you're like, hey, Sally's making twice what I make.
Right.
And she's doing the same damn job.
Right.
Like, what's up with that?
Right. I agree, 100%. I think that's one of those things. That's one of those things that's
like just taboo. They're like, no, everybody's just like, no, you don't talk about it.
And it's been normalized, and people are like, okay, and they don't question it. They say, well, they told me not to talk about it, so I don't talk about it.
Right, but who does that benefit? The employer,
right? And so I think there's a lot of that stuff where like I don't think unions are necessarily the solution, but at least a conscious working populace that pays attention and knows their own worth and knows their own value of time and actually sits down and spends a little time thinking for themselves on what they want out of their job. Right. Now, granted, there are people that don't have control of that situation because their work isn't worth the effort from the boss. That's one of the problems with the minimum wage conversation to me is the work you are doing for me is not worth me putting a bunch of effort into you as an employee, because the job you do is so simple and easy and 10,000 people can do it. And it's not trying to demean the person. It's just the reality of the situation. But if you can put yourself into a situation with work where you can install your value and you can show that you're valuable to them for what they're paying you and stuff like that, then it should be normal that you can have a conversation about what you want as an employee. And maybe it's a little bit more money. Don't be stupid. Don't ask for twice as much money or something like that, but maybe a little bit more money, maybe a little bit more time off, maybe a little bit more fixed schedule to what is useful for your personal life. Like work-life balance. That's like one of those guru phrases that runs around. That's all, it's got like this hippie thing to it. It's like, no, that's a real thing that we could.
It's how you keep your employees happy and actually staying around.
Right. And it goes both ways. And
right.
It's just one of those things that
you're happier, you're more productive, you're getting more done from them.
Right. But we've gotten so comfortable societally is like, that's not the way it works.
You're being late every day. And it's like, well, yeah, it's because I worked a double last night.
Yeah. And it's just that's what frustrates. That frustrates me. And I think that's one of the big things that needs a fix. I think employers need to get put themselves in check, and I think this employment shortage might start that conversation for some people. Some employers might go, okay, what need to
do to entice you?
Right, we actually need to be a little bit better to our employees, not just financially.
It's like, oh, we've got an HR person you can come talk to whenever you have an issue.
Right, but we got to start looking at how do we complete our employee. How do we do well for our employees? How do we make sure they're taken care of and stuff like that? But
like you said, that kind of goes against, kind of this standard that's been in place for decades.
Right. It's the very American system, right. And it's not a good one, and it's got major flaws that need to be looked into. All right, I said that was last call. You got one more?
Nah.
All right. Fanatic Brewing, fanaticbrewing.com/agreement. Go check them out. 2727 North Central Avenue. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 5 o'clock to some other time. Most Saturdays are open at noon to 2. Go down to 2727. Go see the fan base. That's their tap room, whatever you like to call it. The tap room is open 5 to 10 or later. Thursday is open mic comedy. Friday, Saturday, they have $5 black bean or black Angus burgers. Almost an agreement. fanaticbrewing.com/agreement. We are almost in agreement, and we are at Gmail. We are on YouTube. We are on Twitter. We are on Facebook. You can go to our website, almostagreement.com, and check us out there. You can get all the episodes up to date there, as well as your favorite major podcast providers. Give us a like, a share, a thumbs up, a 5-star review. Tell your friends about us, all that kind of different stuff. We're getting there. We're growing a little bit more and more and more and more. We need to get our numbers up so I can quit my day job, so I can quit bitching about them on the show. Eventually, they're going to start listening, and then I'm going to get fired anyway. And that's quite all right with me. So, we're almost in agreement. Stick around. We got more stuff coming up for sure. Good night, everybody.